Hello, boils and ghouls. Arif Blackstone here with episode 2 of Behind the Keyboard. Today's guest is an author who he's really good. He's got one of the best short story collections out ever. Highway 181. This interview is actually a little different. This introduction is post interview because we just kind of got into it. Um, I hope you enjoy it. If you like the video, please subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, like, all that sort of stuff, and enjoy my conversation with D.S. Ullery.
Somehow feel like having a day job. There you go. I see it. It says starting to record. Okay, so here we are, folks. My name's DS Ullery. We're now live, and I'm going on the record with this. So
Hey,
everything I say is my responsibility. To not blame the guy with the headphones.
it's it's okay because I can always edit it and cut it to be start later. It's just that you said I could record it, and it sounded like it sounded like it was, it sounded like it was going to be a really good opener. So
one thing that I find in the writing community that does bother me, man, I run in every so often. I run into this attitude, this sort of sense of from certain people. Not often. It's very rare, but a lot of people that are like, "Oh, it sucks that I have to have a day job while I do the writing on the side." And I'm thinking, you know what? Especially now in the pandemic, when employment in this country took a hit, it's like you have a day job. Be grateful, man. There's nothing wrong with doing a hard day's work. I would love to be a full-time writer, but you know what? My checks don't bounce.
oh yeah, no, totally agree. I mean,
You know, I
totally
have
agree.
benefits.
Oh
I
yeah,
have paid time off. I have
yes,
health coverage.
yeah.
You know, if what I have to do, if this job is what I have to do to survive, and I can only do the writing on the side, so be it. I hope that changes one day, but I'm not going to sit there and bitch and moan about my lot in life because I have a full-time job that, by the way, also has a retirement fund. I have retirement. I have a God damn it. What's the word for it when you pay into it?
You've
Uh,
got. I know in the USA it's a 401k. Is that what it is in the USA?
actually, we actually like that. Yeah, for us it's actually the police fund. It's like
Okay, so
the law
so
enforcement fund.
pension fund. Yep.
That's it. Thank you. And that, ladies and gentlemen, tells you the length of my writing expertise that I couldn't remember the word pension.
Oh, look. I'll be honest. I have certain days. You got to find that. This is really funny for two reasons. One, I have certain days where I can't spell the word a. Okay,
Oh my God, dude.
yeah. But here's the other thing. My day job here in Mexico, I'm an English teacher.
Yeah, you mentioned you were teaching the class. It was English, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I teach English. So it's that sort of thing where
I know. It's
I'm a
you get these little stumbles, man. I get it.
oh yeah,
I get it.
and being Australian, it's even worse because I have to stop myself from going 100% Aussie with the way I talk to people, and that means also really controlling the swearing because there are certain times someone tells me something in a class, I just want to go, oh fuck, and I can't because I've got to record all the classes.
Right. Well, I used to actually tutor as I was an ESL tutor.
Oh, okay.
I had two ladies that actually my students, my pupils for about a year were two Hispanic Latino women who owned a beauty salon locally, and they didn't their English wasn't as accomplished as they had wanted it to be,
Yep.
and they had a lot of English speaking clients who only spoke English, didn't speak you know Spanish. So they wanted to learn, get a better sense of the language, and I helped them. And we eventually parted our ways, but it was really nice. The last day of class, they gave me this gift card as a appreciation for everything I had done for them. And they said they were getting compliments from their customers on how eloquent their speech had become. I'm like, oh, I'm glad I could help. So that was my contribution. But I know I actually, I was when I was a kid, I was that I wrecked I mean, this isn't a boast. This is just real life. Okay. I was that kid in school who kind of wrecked the curve when I was in English class because that was my best subject. It was
Yeah.
pretty much written in stone that I was going to write because I was reading at such a young age. I was actually reading. I mean, my first experience reading Stephen King, I was 10 years old. I found a paperback copy of The Shining that my mom couldn't finish.
Wow.
And that started me with Stephen King. It was
Wow.
1981, and I never looked back. But I, I knew that writing was going to figure into my life from an early age at some point in one way. The
Oh yeah.
fact that I get published at all, that at any point that I've ever sold books or gotten good reviews, got good video reviews, of which yours was the first. I've had two now, but yours was the first,
Oh,
which I'll never forget.
oh look, I've got that format of reviewing I do where it's supposed to be 30 seconds. I'm actually going to expand it. So the one that you sent me a couple months ago, the End of the World one, the new shorts, the revamped short story collection you put out.
Oh,
With the
Beyond
new,
Where the Sky
yeah,
Is.
yeah, Beyond Where the Sky Is. That's that. I got a massive reading list. Because I got all these books
Oh, dude,
I want to
listen,
review.
about that book, feel free to bump it all the way to the bottom. Not that I'm not proud of the book or anything, but that book has been out since 2016, and at this point I figure it's gotten all the press it's likely to get at this point, considering it was self-published. But anything that comes its way at this point, I'm eternally grateful
Oh
for
look,
it. So
look,
take
look.
your sweet time. And by the way,
Yeah.
I am still working on the ABCs of Death,
Oh,
ABCs of
ABC
Horror 2,
of Terror
the
Volume 2.
one
Yeah,
that you're in.
yeah. My story's letter K. So
I haven't gotten there yet. I'm on a C or D. I'm doing like a
okay.
story or two a day.
Yep.
That's how I do anthologies now, because I like the ones that I like. When I realize that I'm enjoying the book, I like to stretch it out every day. I like to go a
Yep.
couple stories a day so it lasts longer. If I'm not enjoying the stories, I'll try to knock that fucker out in like a single day and get through it. But I'm
So
actually really enjoying this one.
okay. So then, how many days did you do the Book of Spite? Half a day?
No, actually, the thing about that is the reason I didn't get more detailed about my review was I was you have an interesting style, and I mean that in a complimentary sense, but you
Sure.
remind me of another guy. Your style, your actual technical style is different, but the way your work kind of got to me was different. There's a gentleman I know named E.R. Robin Dover.
Okay.
He's a very good underground writer. That dude is about the most cult writer you've seen. I mean, he's got not a lot of people are aware of ER, but those who read his work regularly are big fans. And the thing about his work is you can't, you have like, you would like it. I liked it because we're well versed in English. We can teach English
Yep.
because we know the language well enough. You have to be on that level to enjoy his work because he does
Shit.
not write. He doesn't dub his work down. He reminds me, the way I describe it is Peter Straub, but with more whimsy.
Okay. What's the guy's name? Because I want to read him now.
E.R. Robin Dover, and I suggest you look up a short story called "Wake Up, Little Susie."
Wake Up, Little Susie.
That was actually that got my vote for best short story of the year it came out, which was like 2016 or so. You can get it on Amazon. It's a single shot.
Awesome. Okay. Yep. I am
He's
definitely.
E.R. Robin Dover. He's a very good writer, man.
Okay.
And your work, you're not as, how do I put this? Your writing isn't quite as technical as his is, but it has the same vibe to it. It has the same impact on it. It's uniquely you in a good sense. It's like I'm reading your work and I'm like, if you gave me if someone gave me one of your short stories and it was blind, I didn't have your name on it. I think a couple of pages in, I would go, you know what? I think R.F. Blackstone wrote this because you have a distinctive style, and I liked it. And that was really all I could say about your book, man. Was this is a good book? I think fans of cosmic horror and more twisted, darker horror will really get a kick out of it.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. Fuck.
I think they will. I mean, it was a straightforward review. It wasn't that I didn't like it. I gave it, I think I gave it 5 stars or 4 stars.
It was 4 stars. I think
4 stars, but it was a really good book. I was like, you guys, read this. It's a good book. If this is your gig, you'll like it.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to seeing what you do now. And I'm really looking forward to this new one with that cover that you released. Was it the giant scorpions on it?
Yeah.
What's it called again? What did you
the Valley of Bicho.
The Valley. Yeah, I want to read that because the more I'm reading about this, the more I'm seeing you talk about it online. I'm like, this sounds like it's going to be a fucking fun read, man. It sounds like it's going to be entertaining. And that goes back, by the way, to circle back to, you might have seen a comment I left on one of your questions the other day on when you asked why people give action horror a bad rap. and I answered you. Hold on one second, buddy. Hold on. Bear with me. I have allergies, so
No,
I
it's
kind of
okay.
gotta. I don't
It's,
want to do that on camera, you know. So we're
you don't want to lose it.
people don't need to see that, dude. I know you can edit, but still,
No,
let's
it's
save you
okay.
the work. I was saying though, um, that answer. It's been my experience that a lot of military horror, which I have actually, when I was reading your question, I was like, I realized I've actually tried my hand at reading a number of military stories because the premise behind military horror is actually not a bad one.
Mm,
You take the badassery of like Marines or military guys, and I respect soldiers. I have people in the military in my family. My nephew was actually my nephew Zachary is my brother Jason's oldest boy
mm.
was decorated. He was special forces. He's a Green Beret.
Wow. Fuck.
I have a badass in my family. I have a legitimate military badass in my family. So I respect it. I'm not, even though I'm a moderate Democrat who has some left leaning tendencies. I still very much support the military, and so I'm all for it. But generally, most of it descends into military action cliches, and they forget to make it scary.
Yep.
There's an emphasis on the scary part and not the horror part. And like I said in my response to you, you look at a movie like Aliens, and the reason Aliens work so well is you got the full-on badass military space marines, but they made it a super scary monster movie. If
Yep.
anything, I thought in its own in a different kind of way, Aliens was actually kind of scarier than Alien.
Oh yeah.
Alien had a quiet. Alien had that haunted house, quiet dread thing going on. But in terms of like edge of your seat, holy shit, what's going to happen next? We're all doomed kind of feeling. Aliens rocked it.
Oh look.
It was terrifying. The movie was terrifying, but it
I,
was also a good military adventure.
yes, it
And if you
was.
can do that, if you can make the creature feature stuff work, there's nothing wrong with action horror. It can be one of the most effective genres out there.
Well, yeah, and honestly, I mean, like that one, that one was put out by a publisher for me, and honestly, that
Yeah,
was the.
Seven Press, who by the way I've heard of.
Oh yeah, they're
Good
you
for
know.
you.
Well, honestly, three of my books are with them. My very first novel, Big Smoke, that was them. Then Kaiju World, which is my Jurassic Park ripoff, honestly. But see, this is the thing, because
Yeah, but at least you're honest about it.
that's it. Everything I write comes from a point of view of a movie, because that's what I spent my early writing career trying to do. So I kind of sit there and I go, okay, like for example, Kaiju World, literally the thought process was, what if you took Jurassic Park and you replaced all the dinosaurs with Godzilla?
Right. Well,
And
hey man. First of all, it's not like anybody else hasn't had that idea. Look at was it Guillermo del Toro, Pacific Rim?
Grim, yes.
That wasn't really Jurassic Park. That was more of War of the Worlds with Godzilla.
Yeah.
But keep in mind too, Jurassic Park was a novel first.
And it was a horror novel. It was more like that novel is really
Thank
scary.
you. By the way, as long as we're oh god damn it. I really have. By the way, you might notice it's not your audio. My voice actually sounds like that because I always sound congested because I have sinus issues. I have like sinus damage from years back. You probably
Okay.
picked up on that right away. So it is what it is, man. I stopped trying to
It's
I
okay.
live with it now.
It's okay,
But if I sound like I have a cold, I don't.
Okay.
That's how I sound. It's irritating, but it is what it is. About Jurassic Park, you may have seen me post on multiple occasions that my favorite film series is Jurassic Park. Somehow, over the years, that those crazy ass dinosaurs and the world they inhabit on the big screen has become my go-to for entertainment. And one of the reasons I'm a huge and staunch defender of Fallen Kingdom, the most recent one, where
Oh.
it took a critical beating. I went the opposite direction.
Yep.
It was my favorite of the sequels. I don't think it's my favorite movie. I think my favorite movie at this point, I would have to go back to the original. For a long time, it was The Lost World, but I recently did a rewatch of the entire series, all 5 existing movies,
Wow.
and I realized how much I love that original movie, man. It's such an awesome flick. Spielberg really nailed it.
Oh, he did.
He nailed both that and The Lost World. But the reason I like Fallen Kingdom so much is what you just said. Of all the sequels, since the first, it's the movie that the most reflects the horror elements of the original novel
Yep.
since the first movie.
Oh yeah.
In fact, some of the elements from that movie, from Fallen Kingdom, were taken from the original novel. The volcano that wipes out the island,
Yep.
that happened in the original book.
Oh yeah.
Stuff like that it was never used, but they did such a great job. That entire sequence where the dinosaur is chasing the little girl through the house and everything, chasing the people through the house. I'm like,
Yeah.
if you ever read the original book and even the sequel that he wrote, Lost World, Michael Crichton was kind of heading in this direction anyways. This is where he was going. So at the end, when she uh,
Lets them all
lets
out.
those dinosaurs out. By the way, spoiler for a movie that's like 3 years old now. Uh, when he lets all those dinosaurs out, I think this was where the books, if he had continued writing books in the series, we would have ended up here, just like the cloning.
Yep.
The cloning of the little girl, where everybody was kind of going, really, they cloned the little girl? Well, yeah,
It makes sense.
wouldn't you think?
Yeah. If
It
they can
makes sense. They cloned the dinosaurs.
Yep.
Why not?
Oh yeah. Well, see, I mean, when I saw Fallen Kingdom, my I'm sitting there and I'm just going, okay, sat down, moment it started, about 10, 20 minutes, and I'm just sitting there thinking, this is pure creature feature love. This is it. This is not. It's not trying to be anything else. And moment the volcano and everything else, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, so it's just the T-Rex scene from the first movie, just extended, basically. That horror. That's the most horror scene in that entire first movie, and they've just turned that into one movie. And I was just like, this is it. This is what I want. This is
It'll work. It works, right? By the way, the opening sequence of Fallen Kingdom is probably my favorite opening sequence of the entire franchise. You got not only you got the guys in the submersible being eaten by the mosasaur, but you got the guy that they see the T-Rex coming and they're in the helicopter, they're trying to wave him on, and that whole sequence was just everything. And I'm watching that scene in the rain and the dark, and the T-Rex comes out and roars at the guy, and it occurs to me, I'm going, somehow over the years, these amazing special effects have gotten better. I don't know how they did it, because you look at Jurassic Park and you think they're never going to top this. But looking at that opening scene, the first 10 minutes of Fallen Kingdom, and I'm like, Jesus, this is creature feature gold. I've never seen it on this level. It looks completely plausible. It's amazing. So yeah, big fan of those movies, man. And I'm looking forward to reading your novel. By the way, that's next.
Okay.
After I do ABCs, I'm doing yours. I was gonna read Tim Meyer's The Switch House. Sorry, Tim, but I'm gonna go ahead and. Well, Tim's a good guy. He's an insanely talented writer. In fact, I don't know.
He's a bastard.
What?
He's a bastard.
So, yeah. How dare you be so good? Damn you, Meyer. You're always one step ahead.
Oh, look, I'm recording with him next week. Next Saturday, I'm going to be recording.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, Tim is awesome, man. He's also been a very, very big supporter of my work from day one. Going back to 2016, he was one of the first people to give my work props, and I've watched him just evolve as a writer over the last 5 years, and he's a good human being. He's a very good-natured human being. He's very supportive. He's one of those people that it makes you proud to be part of the horror community. I think he's a friend. Even though I've never met him in person, I consider him a friend. He's a good guy. He's very supportive, and he's fucking incredibly talented. So much so that, yes, I'm jealous.
Look,
jealous. He did a book last year called Dead Daughters, which was my favorite book of 2020. Of all the books I read in 2020, that is still my favorite novel. How that didn't get nominated for every award there is. It's one matter of fact. I'm not knocking anybody that was just nominated for the Stoker Awards or for the Shirley Jackson Awards or whatever. Any award, the Splatterpunk Awards. I'm not knocking any. God bless them all. Good luck to everybody. Everybody deserved to be nominated that was nominated. But two notable absences in the nomination field of awards of any kind this year were Dead Daughters, and this is the one that this is the other one that had my jaw on the floor. That was the name of the book. No, I'm just kidding.
How do you spell that?
Yeah, right. It's no, seriously, all jokes aside, the second title that I am astonished, absolutely astonished, didn't get like any awards love, like nominations, was Crossroads by Laurel Hightower. I mean, literally, when I was like, how did that happen? Because for me, that was aside from Dead Daughters, that was the best read of 2020. Laurel Hightower Did so. Okay, here's how you know the mark of a great story. All right, this is, and I
Mhm.
love this. It's always a thrill when I discover a new writer, someone whose work I've never read, and they hit me. They just boom, 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 right in the heart, man. Her main character is a single. Actually, I think she's divorced in the book. Mom, uh, mourning the loss of her oldest son, her son, and that's the basis for it. I have no shared characteristics with this person. I'm a, I'm a single man. You know, I don't have any children. I've never lost a child. There's literally no aspect of my life of this woman's story or pain that I relate to. And halfway through that book, I was like practically crying reading this book. I was so overwhelmed with emotion. She made me empathize with that character so beautifully on such a rich level. And this is the brilliant part, and this is where it was just one of those bravo, bravo moments. She takes a hard right turn and things get violent and really nasty in a way that I didn't see coming. I mean, I'm talking, it's it just it's like this left hook. It hits you like, holy shit, did I just read that? And I went back and read the passage again. And if you have to, I don't want to give it away,
Mhm.
but things start to happen and she starts making personal sacrifices of a particularly brutal nature. And that's all I'll say, but it hits you. It's just like, holy shit. And it
Okay.
goes to another level. And that's when the horror elements start to take over. The
Okay.
story gets progressively darker and it leads to this conclusion that just leaves you shaken and emotionally spent. And that's to me what the best horror stories do.
Yeah.
And because of that, Dead Daughters by Tim Meyer did the same exact thing. He made me empathize with this family, made this incredible set of circumstances that he put him through seem so real and genuine that again, end of the book, I was exhausted. And I love that. Those are the best kind of stories, man.
Yeah.
The other great stories, and this is what I loved about your book, the Book of Spite,
Hmm.
the stories that rather than they get you, they pull you in, they have you glued to the page, which your stories did. Um, but it's a different kind of excitement. It's you walk away with that shit-eating grin on your face, going, "It's that Tales from the Crypt vibe."
Yeah.
That's which, if you read my work, you know that's kind of the thing I tap into.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
see, that's the thing. I mean, I honestly, I'd never heard of you until last year
oh my
when.
god, dude, I'm a cult writer. That's a
Well, that's
kind
it.
way of saying fucking nobody knows me.
But I mean,
Cult writer,
well, then I'm also a cult writer
aren't
as
we
well.
all?
We all are until we're not. Um,
Right.
I mean, when you put out the call for people to review Highway 181,
Right.
and I said,
And thank
yeah.
you again.
Oh no, honestly, I'm happy to. That's the thing. Just I started reading it, and instantly I was just like, okay, I'm a fan. That's it. So anything you put out, I'm gonna read. That's the thing. And by the you know when I finished the book, I just was like, okay, in that exact moment, it's like, okay, I finished the book. I need to record the review because that was it. That reaction was instant. You know,
Well, that's actually when I wrote your review of the review of the Book of Spite. It was maybe an hour after I had finished the book. So it was like that was my main takeaway. I thought about it for a little bit. It's like, what do I want to say? I said, you know what? People that are into this kind of fiction should read this. They'll enjoy it.
yeah,
And I was a little bit overwhelmed because I was still kind of processing the way that you write, and I enjoyed it. I mean, I enjoyed it a lot. There's no caveat there. There's not, but there's none of that going on. But it was like ER's work, like I mentioned earlier. I was like, I found someone who has such a distinctive style of their own that I'm kind of still processing how much I enjoyed it. You know, it's like it was he has his own thing. I mean that in a good sense.
yeah,
But with the way you were saying you responded to my book, that's what happened with Crossroads and Dead Daughters. Now,
yeah.
unfortunately, with Dead Daughters, I got into a place where I wasn't really able to do any. I got away from writing reviews and stuff for a while, and so it was a while before I was able to post a proper review for the book. Crossroads, I was back in that place where I was more regularly leaving reviews, so I
And
was able like to come off that, and I that same night I was like, nah, man, I gotta fucking write about this. Got on there and I wrote that review on Goodreads, and it was just so great. And she did apparently she wrote a novel before that,
Really?
Crossroads is their second publication, second major
Oh,
release.
wow.
So I'm going to go back and find the first book and read it because I'm a fan. And like you said, like, you know, as this is the case with Tim, as this is the case with you, as is the case now with Laurel Hightower,
You're
her
going to,
name's on it. I'm going to read it.
yeah.
Another one that I'm going to read after I finish ABCs of Death, or horror rather,
ABCs of
too.
Terror.
Uh, and Terror. I'm sorry. There's a series of movies called the
Yeah.
ABCs of Death, and I
Oh,
keep getting them messed
yeah.
up in my head. After I finish that anthology, and then your book In the Valley, and then I do the Switch House, I'm gonna go and look for Laurel's first novel. That's gonna be the next
Okay.
one I do,
Yep.
and we're gonna go from there. And I'm gonna start doing it. But those were my two big books for 2020, man. They were amazing. And my favorite anthology of the year uh, was called Lullabies for Suffering,
Oh,
Tales of Addiction
yes.
Horror. And
Yeah.
one of their stories, written by Gabino Iglesias, who is an extremely
Oh,
talented writer,
yeah. Oh,
he just got nominated for a Stoker Award
he's
for one of
another
the stories,
bastard.
which, by the way, deserved it. Best anthology of the year, man. It was an amazing, amazing book. I'd recommend it to anybody. Mark, I reviewed some of his other work a couple years back around the time that Beyond Where the Sky End first came out.
Hmm.
And he is an insanely talented writer, but he's also an equally talented editor. And that he put that anthology together, and he's just
Oh,
he did a great job. I think he did a wonderful job.
oh,
So I've been rambling on.
no, it's okay.
So
It's okay. It's
you
okay.
said you had questions you wanted to ask. What are your questions, bud?
Okay, so it's okay. I'm happy for you to ramble. That's the thing.
No, I'm enjoying it, man. Yeah.
This is for you to talk and for people to get to know you, and they get to actually see
Yeah,
who.
I'm getting to know you too, bud.
Yeah. Oh, look, it's okay. I mean, I'm nothing special.
And neither am I, but we both
Oh,
love what we do. I think it shows in our work.
yeah, that's the thing. Well, I mean, okay, so I have this rule. I have this little rule which is called the rule of fun. So if I'm having fun writing something, I know my readers are going to have fun reading it.
Right.
Okay, and it's something I try to do in all aspects of my life. Okay, do you think it? You said it yourself. You enjoy doing writing. Do you think that's almost like paramount to enjoy this? Because there are times where it's a shit thing to be shit job or a shit thing to want to make money from because
That's a very good question. Yeah, it is. And if I didn't enjoy it, I certainly wouldn't be pursuing it because I'm breaking in and being a superstar in this field is hard because everybody's trying to do it.
oh yes,
And unfortunately, and forgive me, I'm not trying to sound like an elitist. I'm all about the underground. I'm all about the unknowns, man. Let's discover the new talent. But there are a lot of people that don't have the knack, or they didn't do the homework and do the research and kind of hone their craft. And they throw some stuff out there because a couple of their friends on Wattpad said that their story was good, but they were friendship reviews, and
yeah,
so they threw it out as a Kindle ebook with a bunch of spelling errors and grammatical mistakes and a narrative that's thin and characters that don't resonate and a plot that goes nowhere or is clearly a ripoff of a series of cliches that have been overdone. And people see that and it gives the field a bad name. And all of a sudden, readers are trying to wade through all that shit.
yeah,
However, readers have gotten more sophisticated since the ebook boom. And I think that's filtering out now. We're seeing that there's more of a focus on the stuff that's people took the time. Like one thing you might have noticed about my book Highway 181, even though I probably made a stumble or two because that was the actual collection was a do-it-yourself effort. Even though most of the stories had been sold previously and published traditionally, the actual collection was something I did on my own. Um, I edited the shit out of that book. I went through and I did like 9 passes, so at least it was
wow,
reasonable. People can read it and go, okay, this works.
yeah,
And so when I got the love that I did for the reviews that I did receive, when people responded the way they did, I was so happy because it didn't put everybody off. It didn't throw them out of the story. But to go back to your question, yeah, if I didn't have fun, um, I wouldn't be doing it because there is a degree of elitism and snobbery and things like that happen. You know it, I know it, a lot of people know it.
oh yeah,
There are people that unfortunately have an idea that like, oh hey, this is a members only club for only a select few, or we're going to be the arbiters of who gets included and who doesn't. We know they're out there. Fortunately, they're in the minority. By and large, the writing community, specifically the horror community, has been wonderful. They've
oh
been
yeah,
they embraced a mug like me who started out not knowing what the hell I was doing. All right, and I've learned. I mean, one of my heroes, and here we go again. Excuse me, buddy.
It's okay.
All right, damn it. One of my heroes. He's a good friend, and he's been, whether he likes it or not, a mentor to me in many ways. Is Terry M. West.
I was going to ask about him.
He's an amazing writer. When he came to me, the version of Beyond Where the Sky Ends that you're reading,
hmm
that was you said it was the revamped one, right?
Yep.
I sent you the new version.
Yes.
There's a story that wasn't it in the original version called The First Rule of Showmanship, which he came to me when he started his new press, Too Much Weird.
Uh-huh.
Um, and he loved that story so much, he asked me if I wanted to publish it as a standalone chapbook. And so I was willing to take it out of Beyond Where the Sky Ends and replace it with a different story that had never been that it appeared years ago in another anthology, but had never been republished. And so I switched it out. And so the First Rule of Showmanship now only exists in publication form as that standalone chapbook. And that's how much respect I have for Terry.
Wow.
In that I was willing to take it out of my original collection and publish it exclusively through his press, because he's been such a good friend and a supportive friend and such an example to me about how to keep persevering. And he has his down days. Recently, he mentioned that he has been writing because things have been a little bit, a little dark on his end, I guess. He's been going through some stuff. And, I'm always there in his corner giving him a thumbs up and trying to be a supportive back. But people like him have made this experience, and people like yourself, who, has turned out to be a friend as well as a writing colleague. You're why I enjoy. That's the other part of it. It's not just fun to write. It's fun to see you other people doing the same thing. And I take real pleasure in supporting your work.
Oh,
When you guys knock it out of the park, I love being your cheerleader. I love sharing links to your work and helping you. If I can spread the word or help get you one sale, I'm proud to do it, man. It feels good because you're not my competition. You're my colleagues.
that's
And if they read your work and they read my work, they're going to read somebody else's work. That's how readers work. Because isn't that what you do? That's what I do.
Oh, yeah.
I read your work and I like it. I read Tim's work and I like it. I'm like, who else has work out there that I haven't read or I might want to read more of? And so I look for a new author. And that's how I found Laurel's work, Laurel Hightower. I found her. That's how I found Crossroads, stuff like that. So yeah, it's definitely fun, and I also do it because I really enjoy being part of this particular creative community. The horror community is filled with witty, smart, supportive, and really decent, hardworking people. And by the way, we're the most empathetic community, and I think that's why we write horror, because we feel shit.
Oh, yeah.
We understand that we're scared of this stuff. These are our nightmares. This is the stuff that bothers us. When I wrote a story that's in look at my fucking hair. I wrote a story called I got bedhead and I haven't even been sleeping, man. I need a haircut. In the book Beyond Where the Sky Ends, there's a story called Gruff. BG Gruff, and you'll see it. And it was originally one of my most popular stories before first Rule of Showmanship took off. And it's about bullying. And I was bullied as a kid. I went through a whole bunch of shit, but at school I actually had a stalker. I had a kid that got so bad he was basically a predator. He was lurking in his truck. He would idle in his truck outside my house at night when I was a teenager.
Jesus.
We had to call the police and basically said they had to call him into the principal's office and say, you've been seen outside his house. We're getting the police involved. You have to understand that at this point, if anything happens to him, they're going to come to your house and look you up. Okay, so you might want to back off of this because it's been registered with the police. And he did. He got scared and he left me alone. But I know what it's like to be threatened. I know what it's like to be pushed around because you're different. I know what it's like to have people basically look at you and say, you don't belong, you're inferior, you're not one of us, you don't think the way we do, you don't act the way we do, you don't believe what we believe. And to be punished for it, to be threatened and shunned and rejected. I've been through all of that. I know what it's like to be, feel like an outcast. So I use that pain in my writing.
Yeah.
I know what it's like. Just like my mom went through a terrible marriage when I was a young boy that affected her and my two brothers. I have two older brothers, the youngest of three brothers,
Mhm.
and we had an abusive stepfather for about 8 years of our life, for my formative years, and he was psychologically and violently abusive.
Jeez.
And I know deep stuff, but this is part of the process. This is part of what makes us who we are. You know, this is where it comes from. And I saw what happens when someone who commits domestic abuse terrorizes a woman.
Mm.
So when you read a story like Delivery, and you wonder where the empathy comes from the female perspective, I got that story. I actually heard a story about a serial rapist murderer who was being put to death. And the first thing I thought when I heard that story was, well, first thing I thought was, well, good. I'm sorry, but I'm not all for people dying or anything. But if there's a person that kind of had it coming, he
Yeah.
kind of brought that on himself. But the other thing I thought was, I wonder what his afterlife is going to be like. If you believe in the afterlife, which I do, I'm a
Mm.
Christian. I'm not an evangelical Christian. Well, my take is I believe in Christ. I don't dig organized religion. I have a real problem with organized religion. I think it took some very peaceful, life affirming teachings
Yeah.
and weaponized them and used them to be cruel and exclusionary and all that shit. But that's a story for another time. All this, I got to thinking when I was listening to the story on the news about this guy being put to death, and I started thinking about, hey, what would his afterlife be like? And then it occurred to me, um, what if his fate, what if hell for him was to be reborn as the type of as women victimized by his type of person, the person he was in life, all over the world? Because we know women are victimized to this day. I mean, you hear about shit going on in other countries
Oh yeah.
where women are literally rounded up in mass numbers and sold into the sex trade, you know. And if they don't perform, they get murdered and
Mm.
mutilated, you know. And you hear all this story. What if this guy's destiny was to be born as those women? So and then every time he dies,
It's
once again, he goes right back and he remembers it every time it happens. And
that's
I thought
good.
that'd be great, you know. But that came from my empathy because I witnessed my own mom being targeted by a husband who was a domestic abuser, was a violent sociopath. I grew
Yeah.
up in that environment. It's a miracle that none of us grew up to be abusers. You know, do I have anger issues? Yeah, I actually have been very open about the fact that I struggle with mental health issues.
Yeah.
Um, are they out of control to the point where I commit acts of violence or anything? No, not at all. I'm actually rational, and I just have I can spiral. I have bouts of depression, OCD, things like that.
Yeah.
But um, I went the other direction rather than becoming violent or angry about, all the time, always angry, uncontrollably angry, and basically hurting people. I went the other way. I eventually got control of my anger, even though I still have to live with it. I got it under control and I developed empathy.
Mm.
And that's where my writing comes from. And I think everything we write has to come from a place of truth like that. Otherwise, it comes off as false.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And I mean,
You know?
for me, I mean, one of my favorite stories I've ever written was Metal Apocalypse, the final story from Book of Spite.
Right.
Okay. And okay, honestly, that story there's not like, is so over the top. I think it kind of
Right.
takes Michael Bay and takes a Nicolas Cage performance and goes, okay, you guys stay here, I'll be over here beyond you, you know. But the thing is, it doesn't matter how crazy it gets, as long as there's one moment of truth, one moment where you can
Right.
empathize with one character, then you're safe.
Well, you know what? Actually, believe it or not, you know what my favorite story probably was?
Hmm?
The opening story, where
Cabins?
the cop ends up kind of getting drawn into that cult situation.
Wow, because a lot.
That was the first one, right? The
Yeah,
where the detective gets into like the Cthulhu thing,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah.
The,
It's like it's the aftermath of Friday the 13th or Evil Dead, where the cops go to the cabin and it's the scene of the crime one. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
that.
I actually thought that was a really interesting story, a really interesting take on that, and I kind of empathize with this guy in that it's almost like you get a sense of there's a fear of losing your identity
Well,
in
see,
that story,
uh,
if that makes any sense.
no, it does. And honestly, I mean, I wrote that I wrote because I released those four stories individually before putting them together. Because
Right.
when I wrote it, I had no intention of creating Cat or that whole cosmic horror universe I came up with.
Right.
That was like by accident. and
Yeah.
and cabins was an idea I had for a shit ton of years because I always
Thank
thought.
you. I'm sorry I couldn't remember the name, man. That's not a reflection on the story.
No, it's okay.
Cabin.
Yeah.
That's it. I do that. It has nothing. You saw earlier. I was actually struggling
Yeah.
with the name Dead Daughters.
Yep. No, it's
You know,
okay.
I do that. I flight out, man. That has nothing to
It's
do with the quality of your story. That's all me.
it's
I
okay.
blank on shit all the time, man.
That's no
I'm
problem.
definitely absent-minded.
It's
What's
okay.
that? What's that line? Forget my head if it wasn't attached.
Boom,
You
boom.
know, but yeah, I like Cabins, man. Cabins was probably my favorite story because it kind of got. I think you did a good job of putting us in the headspace of the cops there, man.
Well, see, the funny thing was that was an idea I had. I've had that for a long time. I actually always thought, well, why, after you watch Evil Dead, for any of those Cabin in the Woods movies, I always thought, why is there never a sequel where we're focusing on the investigation? And I always
Right.
had that idea in the back of my head. And I went, okay, I've got, at the time I had Big Smoke out and I was waiting for two other things to happen. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to write this as a short story. And that was at the end of 28. That was the end of 2018. And that's when I started to kind of start becoming depressed for the first time. So that fear, fear of losing your identity, that's one of the few honestly, it's one of the few times where something happening to me got externalized because I'll take from other people's lives, but I rarely try to
Right.
take from my own life and put it into a story. But sometimes, especially when I'm feeling really really depressed, like White Dress, the from that one where the guy, that one was really hard to write
Right.
because there was a lot of my personal feelings in there, and I kind of went, okay, well that was rough. I'm glad I got those feelings out, but I didn't enjoy the process the process of that particular of doing that. And this is why therapy helps sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I've been in therapy a few times. Believe me, I hear you, man. No
So,
doubt.
I mean, but that idea, like I hate it when people say write what you know. I hate when people say that.
Right.
Because okay, I write about gigantic, I write about a zoo with kaiju. That does not exist. Yeah, I wrote it.
Right. Well, like for example, the irony here is I agree with you to a point. Yeah.
Okay.
My take is write what you're feeling.
Ooh.
Right where your head is at. Because, dude, if you ever read the first rule of showmanship, it's
It's on
about
my
a
Kindle.
clown, about a guy who basically performs as a magic performing clown who finds out a secret that it was hidden from him for many years about his marriage. It's a
Ooh.
bad situation. It drives him crazy. It leads to some tragedy. It's about the breakdown of a human psychology and how. And I mentioned this in the special edition which I wrote an introduction for.
Mm-hmm.
That I pointed out that up until last year, when a story called "I Beloved of Other" was released with the Dread Machine,
Mm-hmm.
up until then, the first rule in showmanship was without question my most popular story ever. I got more feedback and response on that, and to this day, the chat
It's
book surprised me by getting all these good reviews. I'm like, wow, it just people really are drawn to it because it's purely non-supernatural, human on human horror. It's all psychological.
okay.
There's no supernatural in it, and it's very dark. It does not have a happy ending. There are no winners in the story, and there's nothing so frightening as and I say this in the introduction to the special edition, the chapbook,
Mm-hmm.
that in my eyes, nothing is as scary or more terrifying or destructive as a human being who's bottoming out mentally. A human being that's just gone insane.
Yeah.
Human nature gone bad is the worst thing in the world, man. Nothing. All your boogeymen, Freddy Krueger's, Godzilla's, Frankenstein's, whatever, man. Oh, sorry, Frankenstein monsters. All of that stuff. None of that shit compares to a human being who's gone down that path of violence and they've lost their mind.
Yep.
Human nature, when it's gone cruel and violent, is the most destructive force on the planet. Man, we'll never see anything as evil.
Oh yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And I don't. The truth is, that's not a truth of mine. That's a truth. But I'm not a magic performing clown. What the fuck do I know about being a magic performing clown, man? I've never done it in my life. I've also never been cuckolded like the guy in the book was. So, I mean, it was just a story that occurred to me, and I knew from, like you said, taken from experiences I'd heard about from others and stuff, my mind conjured up this story.
Yeah.
Do I know that? Oh, no, I don't know that. But I wrote it because I had a good story and I was able to build on that by my understanding of the experience and my empathy as a human being. Hey, what if that happened to me? You know, which brings up its own scary idea that if that happened to me, this might be where it goes. You know, there's a terrifying thought, but you know, I agree with you. If you did nothing but write what you know, I'd be writing these not at all scary and very dry books about being a records clerk, wouldn't I? You know,
Oh, you could make that, yeah, you could turn that into a horror story, you know, the horror of the
right?
mundane.
File the time forgotten.
Exactly. So
You know what, man? We're a little too pleased with our sense of humor.
nothing wrong with that. The world is
This is the part that people are going to fast forward through.
oh, I don't care if they want to fast forward, they can fast forward. If they want to,
Yeah,
if they
I'm
want,
having fun, man.
yeah, and see, that's the thing. That's the key here. You know, so
By the way, what's this show? See, Frankenstein, is that just like a tribute to the monster? Very nice. Karloff, the man.
yep. Oh yes.
I got Rick and Morty.
Ah, nice.
Gift from my brother Mickey.
That's nice. That's nice. See, that show
I
is
love
more.
Frankenstein, dude. You know, it's funny. I was just talking to somebody the other day about the Frankenstein, Universal Frankenstein movies. Actually, you were in. We were in that conversation about Never the Invisible Man.
Yes, that's right.
Over the years, I've kind of come to appreciate Son of Frankenstein a lot more, and I think it might actually be the best movie in the original trilogy, man.
Really?
As much as I love Bride of Frankenstein, I have a real soft spot for Son of Frankenstein, man. I think they did a really good job. Although I was disappointed that the monster didn't talk anymore.
Well, see,
they kind of had. Go ahead. No, I'm done.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. I've only seen Son of Frankenstein once, and that was when I was about. Okay, I'm 34 years old. I saw it when I was about 15, 16 years old, when my dad kind of introduced me to the entire Universal Monsters. And so I watched it, and I kind of went, you know, like you know, after watching Bride of Frankenstein and then Son of Frankenstein, I was a bit like, oh, it's Basil Rathbone. Cool. Wait, the monster's not talking. What the hell? You know?
Yeah.
So I
give you that.
I've not revisited it.
I like how they kind of advanced the story. And by the end of it, Frankenstein wasn't necessarily a name to be feared anymore, you know, that kind of thing. And I think Karloff, considering it was his final performance as the monster in his third time, he did a great job as the creature. To be honest, the second one, The Bride of Frankenstein, probably is technically the best made film, but I just have a soft spot for the third one. It kind of grew on me over the years. But I'll be honest with you, my favorite Frankenstein movie of all time is actually the Hammer Films Curse of Frankenstein with Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. I adore that movie. That was actually what got me started on Hammer horror films.
Okay.
And it was my introduction to actually Star Wars was my introduction to Peter Cushing. Grandma talking like every other kid. I was 7 years old or 6 years old when the movie came out. But in the 80s, I actually saw my first Hammer film was Curse of Frankenstein, which I saw at a local Saturday morning horror show. And I just fell in love with it. It was the colors, the way they reinterpreted the monster, how they didn't borrow from Universal that much.
Yep.
They did their own thing with it. It was brilliantly. It was actually scary. It was creepy, and I love the performances. And Hammer Films had the thing. They kind of came out of the gate swinging with. They actually added an element of gore.
Yes.
Like unwrapping the eyeballs and stuff, and all that. I'm like the hands, the dismembered hands that he got. I'm like, wow, they're actually showing the body parts in this one.
Oh,
that was cool, you know.
Yeah, they were not.
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's like no, it's okay. I was just gonna say they did like that's the thing. I saw that that same movie. You know, I saw that one. Then I saw the first Dracula one that Christopher Lee did for
oh yeah, that's a good one.
You know, and after you watch the Bela Lugosi and the the Boris Karloff Frankenstein and Dracula, you're like, okay, those are classics. And you watch those two, you just go, that's fun.
Now, I will say that I think Lugosi's Dracula was actually the better Dracula than Christopher Lee. I love Christopher Lee, but of the two series that Hammer did, like I said, Frankenstein was the one that kind of got to me.
Yep.
But it's funny we should bring that up because, ironically, I also feel the same way about the two novels. I much prefer the novel Frankenstein to Dracula. I, in fact, didn't particularly care for the novel Dracula. I finally got around to reading the original novel by Bram Stoker about 3 years ago, Uh, and I got through with it, and I was like, that was a thing. It wasn't bad, but I didn't,
Oh, it's very
I just
dry.
after all that build up, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I read Frankenstein, and the differences between Frankenstein and the film versions, the novel, like blew me away.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
holy shit, he can talk, and he's actually intelligent, and all he really wants is to have friends and be loved by people. And oh wow, he killed his wife, and it ends in the Antarctic. Holy shit,
Yep.
you know. Went
Look.
down onto the ice at the end and disappears. I'm like, wow, none of this is in the movies. This is incredible. It was a really well written book,
Oh yeah.
you know.
Well, I remember I read Dracula after seeing the Francis Ford Coppola movie because I saw that
Right.
movie and I was like,
Okay.
that was like visually amazing. The performances, yep, great. But there was that part who goes, okay, it's saying it's Bram Stoker's Dracula. There's no way in hell the book is like that. So I read the
And it
book.
wasn't.
Yeah, I read the book and I just went, well, that was dry, and that was okay.
Yeah, and the I don't think it was interesting because he kind of did a journal.
Yeah, yeah, it
This
was
is
all
how
journal
it's written.
entries.
It's exactly, and that kind of surprised me. And it was a decent idea, but I think the reason I like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein more is that it was more of a straightforward narrative. It was an actual
Yes,
novel, like written like a
yes.
traditional novel. And for me, that kind of story, I think it works better in the novel format. The journal thing was an interesting take on it, but of the two novels, I prefer Mary Shelley's
Oh
book.
yeah,
I just do.
well,
I think it's a better story. And the thing is, that's one of the cases where I like the film versions more. And my favorite version of Dracula is actually very connected to the Lugosi version. It's the 1979 version with Frank Langella. And
yes.
in a very interesting twist, it was actually a remake, uh, like the Lugosi version. It was based on the Broadway play and not
Yeah,
the book. And like Lugosi, Frank Langella played the character in the play
and
when they revived it, and they hired him to be in the film version. So
he
he
was a
did the same thing. He went through the same steps that Lugosi went.
yep.
And so essentially, the 79 film is, in a very real sense, a remake of the
Like
Lugosi version. And the director is a guy named John Badham, who went on to also do a couple of my favorite 80s movies. He directed Blue Thunder,
oh
he directed War Games, and he directed the original Short Circuit. This guy he is
yeah,
one of
okay.
my. By the way, do you see the theme there? Technology going wrong. He
Uh
like did
huh.
this trilogy of first you had a computer that almost started nuclear war. Then you had a helicopter that could be used to pacify, kill civilians if needed, and because it was so dangerous. And then you had a robot that could wipe out a town, but was actually friendly and gained steadiness. It was more of a comedy. But he had this thing about technology going wrong.
Oh yeah.
It was interesting.
Oh, there was a lot of that in the '80s. But I mean, see, Frank Langella, hands down, great actor, and his Dracula is pretty different. Is actually not pretty. It is different to other
He's
Draculas.
so. I just love the fact that he walks into the room and he's like, Frank Langella is like 6.5 feet tall, so he's this imposing figure. And when he's at the table, he made one of the smartest decisions because the classic line is, "I don't drink wine,"
Mm-hmm.
and the way he delivers that line in that movie is it's just brilliant because he kind of does it quickly. He goes, "I don't drink wine."
Yeah,
God,
it's the
it was so
it's the throwaway.
smooth. I'm like, nice, nice, man. That's how you do that.
Oh
It
yeah,
was really nice, man.
but see, I mean, talking about about Frankenstein. For me, my favorite Frankenstein movie was the Kenneth Branagh, Robert De Niro one from the like it was
That is a
'94.
good movie.
Yeah, but
That movie doesn't get nearly enough love. I love the the casting.
oh,
De Niro is the monster. I'm like, that's actually kind of a clever move, man.
and he
But who else
actually
can play Frankenstein but Brana, man?
well, yeah, of course, but but old Kenny Branagh, he's always put himself front and center. But I mean, I remember when I was first was shown that one. No one told me who the monster was. That's the thing. My parents
Right,
didn't tell me who the monster was. And at the end of the movie, the credits come up, and there it is, Robert De Niro. I just goes, no way. I couldn't
right.
believe. But the thing was, I saw that. I've seen that. I saw all the other Frankenstein's. Then watching that one, I'm like, okay, that one, that monster for me, the monster in that one, that's that's the horror, that's the tragedy, that's it. Carlos is very childlike, you know,
Yeah, he is.
and that's the thing. And then you read the book, and you're like, okay, you take out all the Kenneth Branagh extravagance, and you take out all the over the topness. That's the book. He did an adaptation of the book.
Yes, he was very big. By the way, I also like the inclusion of Tom Holt
Oh,
as his buddy. I'm like, I always love seeing him, man. He's from the time I saw Amadeus. But I mean,
yes.
even going back to Animal House, he's consistently. I guess he retired from acting. I haven't seen him in anything in years, but I don't. I think he might be doing Broadway now. I think
Yeah,
he's doing plays now. But
he's always been more Broadway related than he has with
he's
TV and movies. So,
he's just a great actor. Every
oh yeah,
time I've seen him in a movie, I even liked him as the voice of Quasimodo in Disney's Hunchback of Notre Dame. He is just an amazing actor, man. The guy can do no wrong. He's one of those
yep.
dependable actors.
Oh yeah.
That was a great cast, by the way. That whole movie was. I agree with you. It was brilliant. You know, Coppola actually produced that one.
Well, yeah, because it was going to be because Sony wanted basically do their version of horror, their version of the classic Universals. That's what they wanted to do.
Right.
So you had Bram Stoker's Dracula. Then Coppola he produced Frankenstein, but he was going to direct it originally, and because Dracula took so long to make because of all the special effects, he was like, "Screw this, I'll just produce it." And then they were going to do a Wolfman movie, but because there's no like legend, there's no book for the Wolfman, and Universal owns the name the Wolfman. They came out with
eventually they did do a Wolfman movie.
Yeah, which it's not. It's fun.
I finally saw it. I actually hadn't seen that movie until a couple years ago, and I got to see the unrated version, which is a little longer. And although there's some silliness, I thought it was a fairly good movie. I've seen a lot worse. I mean, it was actually pretty entertaining. I will say this: Benicio del Toro actually did a great job. I liked him as Larry Talbot.
Yes.
He was the heart of the movie. And so because I bought him, I kind of was able to get into the rest of the movie. My only regret with that movie was you look at Dracula and Coppola's Frankenstein, they're very practical effects heavy.
Yes.
That's actual makeup and prosthetics that De Niro's wearing. Whereas the Wolfman kind of at the end there, they go into a CGI battle, and it's obviously CGI. And at that point, you're kind of like, okay, the computer-generated Care Bears here aren't really working for me. You know what I mean? It's like
I like that.
Yeah, it's the same thing that sank An American Werewolf in Paris. I actually like the movie An American Werewolf.
Never seen it.
Don't love it. I don't think it's as good as the original by a stretch. But the movie itself would have been a lot more palatable. But those god awful CGI werewolves, man. Every time they're on screen, it's like, that's a fucking cartoon. That's not real.
Okay.
And this is the sequel, the long delayed sequel to a movie that literally had the groundbreaking moment in prosthetic effects when the David Naughton's character transformed. Rick Baker, I think, did those effects. And I think he won an Academy Award for that transformation, which is still the greatest werewolf transformation ever done. And it was all practical.
Yep.
And they should have gone that way. They should have gone with that. I would have loved to see a modern day application of the classic Wolfman transformation where the hair gets added. I would have loved to see more of a modern take on that instead of that CGI shit they were doing, man. But what are you going to do? But the movie itself, the plot, the acting, the pacing, it was pretty good. I actually had a lot of fun with it.
Well, yeah, and I mean, like Sony made their Wolfman movie, and everyone forgets it. Wolf with Jack Nicholson.
Oh my God, I love that movie. We saw that in the movie theater with Michelle Pfeiffer, man. That's what it's funny. It's funny, man. Rich, that's what I said when I walked out. My companion that was with me said, "So what did you think?" And she and I were talking at the time. I said, "That's really interesting because essentially, what they did here was they remade the Wolfman. That was essentially the same premise. A modern human being finds himself afflicted with the curse of the werewolf, and he goes out and does this stuff. And I love it. You see that? There you go. I've seen some people take shots at that movie, but you know what? I thought the final wolf battle in that movie was a lot more convincing with him and James Spader. First off, James Spader does evil better than fucking anybody, man. But in that movie in particular,
Oh, yeah.
Oh God, when he pissed on him. That scene where he pisses on him, where he's in the restroom.
Yes.
Oh my God.
That's the thing, and everyone forgets that. Yeah, everyone forgets that. See, here's the thing: in the '90s, Sony made the Dark Universe, and no one remembers it.
Right. Well, they're trying again. It's funny too because I recently watched the 1990s Mummy movies again.
With Brendan Fraser.
I was surprised how well they hold up and how much I enjoyed of it. I like Brendan Fraser, anyways. But
Oh yeah.
I had a lot of fun, and I remember seeing the Tom Cruise movie,
Ooh.
and yeah, it's like wow, that was painful. That didn't work at all. That
And
movie just wasn't a good movie.
and I mean, the thing that I hated the most was they stole from American Werewolf in London.
I know.
You know,
Well, they
and
also
they stole
it
from
wasn't
everyone.
really a horror movie,
No,
man.
that was more like buddy comedy action thingy. It just,
Action, yeah.
but anyway.
Right. So, what's your next question?
Oh, that's right. I'm supposed to be asking questions.
Yeah,
So,
no, we had questions.
yes. Okay. So just looking at your bibliography, there's a lot of like basically your whole entire bibliography is short stories.
Yeah.
So is that on purpose, or is it just because you, with your job, with everything, you just gravitate towards the shorter format? I'm just.
That's actually a really good question. I think I'm going to stay with the short form for at least the
Mhm.
time being. I might crank out a novel. I've had a couple of stories that kind of got to be about 10,000 words or more. So they're kind of like novelettes. But I'm in love with the short story, man. The best way I can describe it is Stephen King described the short form as like if a novel is like a love affair,
Mhm.
then a short story is a kiss in the dark from a stranger.
Oh,
And
that's yeah.
yeah, I love that. And I think he wrote that in the afterword of Full Dark, No Stars. But I, what had happened was I read, I believe it was Full Dark, No Stars, actually. He wrote a story called A Very Tight Place,
Yes.
which is a story about a psychopath that tries to kill a gay guy, basically. And the gentleman in question has to get out of this outhouse. And it's a real nasty, sticky situation. And he's a great character. And the story does end well for him.
Mhm.
It does. It ends on a good note for him, and a bad note for the guy that tried to kill him. But I read the story, and I had so much diabolical. Remember earlier I mentioned that that put that shit-eating grin on your face. I realized at that time I hadn't. I was coming off of a stretch where I had graduated from film school, had made a series of short films through that, which you can actually find on YouTube.
I am
Um,
subscribed to. I think I am subscribed to your channel. I think.
yeah, it could be. And I was kind of that was going away. That was going nowhere, and I realized it wasn't really working out the way I thought it was. I don't mind that I did it, but it didn't turn out to be the path that I thought it would. And I missed when I was younger. I had been doing more actual traditional writing
Yep.
instead of screenplays and stuff, and I missed it. And when I read that book, I realized this is what I have to do. This was about 2012. And I realized I need to get back to doing this, man. I had done this years ago and I loved it. And everybody said, hey, we're surprised you're not writing. Your stories are really good. Um, so I started writing again, and that was the story that did it. That was the short story, and I realized how much I love the short form. And I figured at this point in my life, because at that point I was already in my 40s, I yeah, I think it was either late 30s or early 40s. I I uh, I kind of knew, yeah, it was in my early 40s. I kind of figured that the chances of me being a Stephen King level best-selling author are pretty much slim at this point, But I could do it to maybe make a few bucks on the side, but more importantly, express that creative aspect of myself, that side of
Yep.
myself that I'm never able to express in my work life and everything. And so I started doing it, and I love it so much that I don't really want to stop. And so what I plan to do is keep doing a series of collections until I have like 8 of these fucking things published.
Yep.
Until because I have, hey, you know what? You're right. I only work in the short form, but at the same time, I have 2 books published.
Yeah.
Plus, I have that chapbook. Plus, I have issue number 2 of Weird Smith, the new horror magazine that I'm in. So I get a lot of stuff published out there.
Well,
They may not be full length novels, but I got a lot of work. In fact, I got a piece of flash fiction that I just signed a contract for a couple of weeks ago. It's going to be an anthology called 99 Tiny Terrors. It's like 1,000-word flash fiction. It's called
ah.
Underneath. It's a good little sea-based horror story that I think everybody's going to like, sort of a creature feature thing.
Uh huh.
And that'll be coming out soon,
Oh, nice.
later this year. And I've got at least half a dozen stories that are out there submitted right now. So the future is more. Yeah, I'm working on several stories right now. In fact, I did work on a work in progress right now.
Okay.
This morning, before I went to the gym this morning, I got working on a current story called Love Shadow, which is a creature feature story with a more, hopefully, a sort of a heartwarming element that has to involve this little girl's pet cat that sort of protects her from this alien creature.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm a cat fan. I actually own a cat who's about 17 years old almost.
I've
And
seen I've seen the photos you've posted about
yeah, I
about.
know. You've heard of the crazy cat lady? I'm the crazy cat
Oh
guy at West
no!
Palm
Look,
Beach.
look,
I
look.
keep posting my cat photos.
Honestly, when I move back to Australia, I'll be for a period of time I'll be living with my mum and dad because of financial stuff. But they recently got a new puppy, which is a cane corso. That's the breed. So chances are
Okay.
my Instagram, all my social media will be taken up with photos of him. So
You know what? Terry does it too. Terry West. You'll see pictures of his dog from time to
yep.
time. They just got a dog like a year ago, I think it was. And they post photos. What can you say? I mean, well, obviously a lot of people do it, especially on Instagram, because there's an actual hashtag called Cats of Instagram
Oh
that I tap
yes.
into all the time. And you look at it, it's like every time I pull the thing up, it tells you 64 million posts today or something. I'm like, wow, holy shit.
That's too
A
many
lot of
cat
cat
photos.
fans out there, and I
Yeah.
hope to tap into that with that story. So we'll see how that goes. But just because it's got a more humane and kind of heartfelt aspect to it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean I'm not going for some creeps, because this thing feeds on children. It feeds on the neurological, the synapses
Mm-hmm.
with that fire in the brain. That's actually its sustenance, and it gets it
Oh.
when it's in children. It's particularly powerful, and it comes to them as sort of the shadow, as a
Mm-hmm.
shadow, like it's sort of a gaseous thing that comes in from space. And I don't want to get too much into it, but that's
No.
kind of what I'm working on right now, and hopefully there's a certain open call that's looking for alien-based horror that I hope to be able to submit it to.
Oh.
Hopefully, it makes the cut. If not, I'll find a home for it somewhere else.
And if not, you can always
So,
get. If not, you can always get Terry to put it out as a chapbook.
yeah, or I could do it myself. I actually successfully published a couple of stories independently last year by creating my own covers.
Mm-hmm.
One that was particularly well received was called Nature's Child. A lot of people like that. So
Okay.
I might
So
go back to doing that again just to make
yep.
sure that I have stuff out there and I stay kind of boom. And the trick is when you're self-publishing is like I talked about earlier. I think the trick is try and market it as much as you can using the resources you have, but
Yep.
also make sure you don't throw shit out there. Make sure that you edit it. It's a good story, that it works well. If you can, beta read it. Now, having said that, we talked about the horror community. One thing I do want to address, man, I'm going to take some heat by people that see this, but I want to be completely honest. If we're going to be open about
Yep.
this, I can't stand Wattpad. I
Ah.
am not a fan of Wattpad. I do not like Wattpad, man. I have openly on Twitter and on Facebook referred to Wattpad as the unwashed armpit of the writing community. I can't. I don't like it, man. I'm not a fan. I was a member of it for about 3 weeks, 4 or 5 years ago, and it was one of the most miserable and depressing experiences that
Ooh.
I've ever had.
Shit.
I just there's some people that oh well my story went through Wattpad. Yeah, okay. Trust
Was
me,
it?
man.
Oh no!
There are
Look, I
better
mean,
venues.
I've heard of Wattpad, and people have like I've had some people say, "Why don't you publish it?" And honestly, everything I've heard about it, I just kind of go, "No."
Yeah,
I have no
that's
interest. I have no
what
interest
it
in it.
was is they were hosting a contest. Um, they were trying to find a story that would be adapted into an episode of what was a proposed new Tales from the Crypt series,
Mm-hmm.
and they picked somebody. And in the time that I submitted a story, uh, I believe it was called The Rise. It's in Beyond Where the Sky Is. But I submitted a story, went through the process. They chose somebody, obviously wasn't me. And by that point, I was so disgusted with Wattpad that I immediately ended my membership. It was like, okay, contest is over. I'm
Yep.
out.
Okay.
Turns out, and I felt bad for the person that won because there was a winner selected. And then about a couple of months later, they announced that I don't know if you remember, they shut the series down because of copyright issues.
Oh,
And it never happened. And I felt really bad. I'm thinking, I always wondered about that. Like, what happened to the person whose story won? That had to be a kick in the nuts, man. Or if they were female, a kick in the groin, I guess. I mean, whatever. But
slap in the
uh,
tit.
yeah, that had to suck, man. Whoever it was, I
Jeez,
feel bad
yeah.
for him. I honestly feel bad for that author that gets your hopes up like that. It's like, hey, geniuses, here's something. Next time, make sure you got the fucking rights situation worked out before you start a contest. Elevate some poor sap's helps like that. Tell them they won, that their story is going to be a launching point for the new Tales from the Crypt series. Is going to be adapted into this series, and then, oh no, we're not doing it. Sorry. That sucks.
Yeah. Nah.
Bullshit, man.
And that's the problem with being an independent, an indie author, and You know, you as you said, you've got a market within your capabilities. There are so many vultures out there.
Oh my God, yeah. Well, there's also some bad presses. Well, one of the happiest stories that came about of the last year was started in an unhappy place.
Okay.
There's a press that you might have heard of. Let's say it shares the name of a popular Toby Hooper haunted house movie from 1981. And there was a
Yes.
big kerfuffle about stuff going on, shenanigans behind the scenes.
Yep, I
Okay.
remember.
And Dead Daughters was originally the version I have was the paperback that was published through that press, the original
Oh,
edition.
wow.
Thankfully, I believe it was Silver Shamrock Publishing who've been
Yes.
knocking it out of the park. I believe they picked it up and they re-released it under their banner because Tim wanted to get away from that situation.
Yep.
And so Dead Daughters with a new cover and a new lease on life got a re-release. And I was so happy to see that because again, my favorite actual full-length novel of 2020. And it found a good home with a much better press without any shenanigans behind it. And I was so happy for Tim. I was like, good, because that book deserved it. That story kind of had a good ending, man. I was glad to see it. It was one of the good guys won.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's like you talk about marketing and vultures and everything. At the flip side of that is you got to be amazed at the ingenuity of some of these people that do this. Look at Terry, who we mentioned a couple times here. I don't know if anybody noticed this. In the middle of a pandemic, when things are looking bad, money was tight, people were struggling, Terry went out and he basically conjured up a brand new publishing house. He did. He created a press and he's got shit out there and he's selling copies of books and he's actually getting noticed and getting good reviews and stuff. And he just did all this on. He decided he wanted to do it, man, and it's amazing. It's
Oh, look.
absolutely, it's incredible to me. It's like that's perseverance, man. That's how you do it. I admire that. I admire that he had these. Like, you know what? If no one's gonna do for me, fuck it. I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna do it myself. I'm gonna get
And
it done. And then he invited me to be along, to be involved, and I was honored, man. I was like, yeah, legit, man. That's
no, look,
solid.
when I saw your post about being in Weirdsmith and all that, honestly, I was, and not blowing smoke up your ass, no bullshitting. I was proud of you for getting, for that because you're good, man. And that introduction Terry wrote for Highway 181, that's a fucking good
Oh my
introduction.
God! You know what? That was actually one of the main reasons that I wanted to go. Here's a side story for you that you may not have known. Actually, I don't think you do. Most people don't.
Ooh, okay.
For a brief period of time, Highway 181 was being opted by a publisher. An
Really?
independent press wanted it, and we were supposed to do a contract and everything. And months passed, and I'm not going to name the press. Not going to get into that. But I felt that their attention to it, when it was too divided, and that they wouldn't give it. I put so much of myself into that book. I did not feel that they were going to give it the attention it deserved. And I looked at their numbers from their sales, and I realized that with Beyond Where the Sky Ends, I had basically sold as many copies of that going independently my first time out as they would likely have been able to sell.
Damn.
And that's when I made the decision. I'm like, maybe I should go self-independent with this one like I did with the first one.
Yeah.
I tried to submit it to some other presses. Some of them just never got back to me at all. And finally a day came, I said, fuck this. And then Terry did that great intro. And then he created that cover for me. He goes, hey man, I thought it would, he goes, I liked your book so much, I thought I'd do this cover. And at that point I said, you know what? I'm going to self-publish because I want people to read this intro and I want them to see that cover.
Well, see,
And I want it associated with my book. I was so impressed with what he did for me. And then he doubled down. And not only did he create that excellent cover for the first rule of showmanship,
and
um, but he did that awesome revamp cover for Beyond
for
Where the Sky Ends,
I
which
love, I
blew
love
my fucking mind, man.
the,
I'm
the
like,
first time I saw it. First time I saw that
yeah, I was
that
like,
new cover,
holy shit,
I was
Terry,
like,
man.
fuck.
And
And
it's got elements that can be associated with like the second or third story of the book, which is called oh shit, it's a nuclear war story,
uh-huh.
and um, the way the image looks kind of reminds me of my descriptions in that story, and I'm like, so cool. If you're reading the book,
It's
it'll bring to mind elements of that of
awesome.
that cover, and I'm like, okay, cool. It ties in.
So
He's a good cat. He's been very helpful to me, man, and I can't say enough about him. And it all started back in 2012, 2013, maybe 14. He wrote, he published a book called What Price Gory.
Yes.
which he has, I believe, since re-released with the new cover and everything as part of Too Much Weird. I still have the original paperback edition with the original cover art. And one of the things that I've said about single author collections over the years, with few exceptions, um, and by the way, yours is actually one of the exceptions. Um, most single author collections or anthologies are hit and miss for me,
Mm-hmm.
myself included. I don't. I am perfectly cool with someone reading my stories and going, yeah, some stories work, some didn't.
Yep.
I'm sure other people feel the same way about my work, but usually most of the stories work, but there's always one or two that don't quite get there for me. Um, the only exception to that rule for many years was Stephen King's collection Night Shift, which was the gold standard
Mm.
after The Shining. That was also one of the books that fomented my from which my love of the short form evolved. That and reading the collected tales of Edgar Allan Poe, which was a big. My favorite short story of all time is The Telltale Heart. Fucking
Oh,
amazing story.
yeah.
I still think that's the best, the standard for short stories. But
If you want
then I
to,
read White Price Quarry, and for the first time in my entire since I read Night Shift, it was the first collection of single author collection I had read where I admired. I thought every single story had equal value and merit. Everyone was fantastic, and
wow.
I expressed that in my review. I was like, this is the probably my favorite single author collection since Night Shift, hands down. You know, and at that point, I started reading everything he was writing. I went back and read his other stuff, and I realized I was a huge fan of this guy. And because of that, I segued to reading E.R. Robin Dover, Tim Meyer,
Yep.
Todd Keisling, and a bunch of other authors I might not have known about. And so that was my gateway to the more independent side of things. And I realized I like the independent stuff more than the mainstream. I like the smaller guys, the independent people. I think they're doing better work. I think they are.
Well,
I think they have more to prove, so they're giving us better quality writing.
yep. And also being independent, you're able to try different things. You're able to go in different directions
Right.
with your stories. Because if you're, okay, if you're Stephen King or Dean Koontz and you're one of those big boys, yeah, fucking fantastic. Good on you. But you do get
Right.
locked into your brand,
Right.
and that does
Well, we'll
help.
just
But
go ahead. I'm
I was
sorry.
going to say, it does help to have a brand, but it does get to that point where, for example, I've written creature feature, extreme horror, zombies.
Right.
I'm a little all over the place, but that's okay because that's how I am. I am all
Yeah,
over the
no,
place.
exactly. That's fine. Well, that's one of the things I do admire about Stephen King that people don't talk about a lot in the last couple of years is we recognize him as this renowned horror author who's pretty much set the standard in terms of literary horror, kind of reinvented the genre of what can sell as horror fiction and kind of became a genre unto himself and paved the way for so many people after him. But in recent years, with like the Mr. Mercedes books, the Colorado Kid,
Yeah.
Joyland, he went into crime and stuff, and he's kind of expanded his horizons. And even the Dark Tower, even though it had horror elements, it was really a fantasy series.
Oh yeah.
And I like how he kind of expanded to be more. You realize he's just a great writer. It's not just horror. He's just a good writer. When he sets his mind to it, he can tell any kind of story, and I admire that. I like writers who can do that.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And I mean, just you said that one of your favorite Edgar Allan Poe story is The Telltale Heart.
Right.
If you want to see a great reading of it, go onto YouTube and look up Nicolas Cage doing an impromptu live reading of it.
Oh, no shit.
At the Alamo Draft House.
Nicolas Cage, huh?
Yeah, and it's him doing it, and just his line delivery, like, because he's at the start of this video, before they get to the actual him telling it, doing the reading, he actually talks about how Edgar Allan Poe is his favorite author as a kid, and and the way it made him feel, that's why he wanted to become an actor, to give everyone else that same sort of feeling. So, but his line reading, some of the lines which are very well known, the way he reads them, it's like, shit, I never heard it like that before. And after watching this video of him, it's about 11 minutes long because of the length of the story. I just went, okay, now I just want an audiobook of him reading Edgar Allan Poe.
Right. Hey, Nick, do you want to read my book on audio? By the way, let's do a little sidebar here because he has been active in the horror genre as of late, doing like Mandy, which was an amazing movie.
Yep.
I know that people are into the whole crazy Nick Cage thing, and he's kind of tapped into that in the later part of his career because he
Yep.
gets some roles. But I think people tend to forget what an accomplished actor and how talented he really is. My favorite movie with him, it also happens to be my favorite Martin Scorsese film, is this number he did called
Bringing out
Bringing
the
Out the Dead.
dead.
I absolutely adore that movie, man. And his performance in that movie is, to me, that's the best performance of his career. That scene where the guy asked him to take over the next night shift, and he goes off on his boss, and he's like, "You promised me. You swore that if I was late again, you would fire me today." And he goes off on this rant, and I just thought it's not a crazy rant. It's actually he's burned out, and it's such a great scene, and it reminds me of. It's like, remember, this is the guy that was in what was it, Leaving Las Vegas?
Yep.
You know, he's got a history of he can act. The guy can actually act. And I hope we get to see him in more movies, maybe moving forward, where he gets to flex that part of himself again. But I think Mandy was close because he was pretty quiet in Mandy.
Well, I mean, yeah, like you look at Mandy, The Color Out of Space that came out. I think it
Oh
was.
my God, I love that movie.
Yes.
I thought that was brilliant. That was an amazing adaptation, man.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I saw Color Out of Space. I just went, okay, doesn't matter who's directing it. Any H.P. Lovecraft adaptation from now on needs a cameo with Cage. He's just got to be in there because he suits that. And now with the new one, that new one he's got out now, Willy's Wonderland, which is
Willy's Wonderland.
You know, I haven't watched it yet. I'm going to be watching it probably tomorrow. You know, from everything I've heard about it, yeah, where he's just fully gone. Okay, I'm going to do horror movies, and fuck yeah, just
all right.
Yeah, I'm not going to say.
Aboard, Nick.
Yeah, that's it. And I mean,
welcome to the genre, man. Stick around.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know when it's coming out, but I wrote a article for the for something Ghoulish, which is now called Ghoulish Media, about why we love Nicolas Cage. So I am
right.
I will. I have this discussion about
an article about why we love Nicolas Cage. I can't wait to read that. Yeah. Let me know when it comes out. Link it to me, man. I'd love to read it.
I will, because I have this argument, because like you, I went to film school in Australia and script writing, all that. So and I had this argument. Everyone, like what you said, everyone kind of goes crazy Cage, and he's not a good actor. And I go, no, he's actually one of the best actors, and I can prove it with one point. He's entertaining in everything.
Yeah,
that's it. Leonardo DiCaprio, Daniel Day-Lewis, they're good actors, but they're not always entertaining.
I'll give you that.
That's why Nicolas Cage is one of the best actors, because he is always entertaining. Leaving Las Vegas was the one he did with Cher. His action movies, Bringing Out the Dead.
You're talking about Moonstruck.
Yep, Moonstruck.
Moonstruck is actually a really good movie. I enjoy that one a lot. I've seen that several times, actually. I think that was probably more Cher's movie, but Nicolas Cage was really good at it.
Oh, that part where he's doing the Metropolis homage, talking about his hand. That's right. That's the thing. He's always entertaining. For me, my favorite Nick Cage, underrated Nick Cage movie is Lord of War.
Yes, Lord of War is a good one.
Yeah.
There was another one he did. Crap, I can't remember. Again, I blank. Like I said, I blank on everything.
It's okay.
So, do you have any more questions?
Oh, come on. I thought this was going to turn into the Nick Cage show.
Right.
Okay. So
I'm sorry, man. I wasn't trying to I wasn't trying to pivot too seriously.
No.
I didn't know if you wanted to ask any more questions.
No, it's okay. No, I've got a list of questions. So, okay, I think this is something that you've talked about in the writing community. You do have this love-hate relationship with with social media.
Yeah.
Okay. One thing I've noticed with authors who are constantly on social media, almost to a obnoxious point, they seem to have a very big ego.
Yeah.
So do you think, the question is, do you think having a big ego can be detrimental to an author?
I think eventually, here's the thing. Everybody eventually, and the worst, by the way, the worst of this is Twitter. And I know you may have been aware, I recently took a break from Twitter for like 3 or 4 months, or a couple of months there. I mean, I was literally on Instagram and Facebook posting images that said "fuck Twitter."
Yes.
I was so over it. I'm so burned out on all the cliques and all the internet dog piles. I refer you what I've been back maybe a week or two, and already I saw the one dog pile on Stephen King for the remarks he made about Texas. Which, to be fair, he wasn't wrong about the leadership in Texas. I mean, the Ted Cruz debacle kind of it tells you
Yeah.
that story about what they're dealing with, but the timing on it sucked. You don't leave a post like that while people are freezing to death. You
No.
know, timing, Stephen. You have to think about compassion for the people, empathy before politics. But sooner or later, even the best of us, including Stephen King, get dogpiled. Joe Bob Briggs
Ah.
got dogpiled because he made a comment about subtext being a little too in the forefront these days.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think ego eventually will burn you out. It'll get to you. It'll lead you to do bad things, maybe in your personal life, maybe in your public life. And sooner or later, yeah, it'll swallow you because people will get sick of that shit.
Oh
And they'll
yeah.
come after you like, you know what, man? I'm not going to pay money to help fund the lifestyle of someone who's as big of a self egotistical prick like you are, so on and so forth. And I posted something earlier. I deleted it, but earlier on Facebook, I was upset about something that happened, and I made a point that I admit it. It was an angry, childish post. I admit it. I probably shouldn't have posted it, but I said, in essence, if you can't thank people who have gone out of their way to congratulate you for your successes, that's a character flaw. You're a
Mm.
person without character, and fuck you if you don't think so. I deleted that because I don't want to put that kind of
It's
negativity out of there.
that's a good
But
point. It's a very good point.
but
But yeah, you
I
would
think,
get dogpiled.
have you noticed something about that? Whenever someone leaves a review, I try and like do
Yeah.
a screenshot of the review, and I'll go out and say thank you on all my media. Hey, glad you enjoyed it. Thank you so much, man. There's an author named Haley Piper
Hmm.
who is actually pretty. She's a talented writer, man. I've read a couple of her several of things she wrote, including The Worm and Her Kings, which is Worm and His Kings rather, that she just wrote, which I liked more as a technical story than a character-driven story. I think for her descriptive writing is fucking spectacular, but for me, the character didn't quite connect on the level I was kind of hoping it would. I was kind of looking for sort of a crossroads kind of connection. I think I thought it was going to get to that level, and it never really did. I mean,
Oh.
that's just I don't know how to. I'm doing,
Mm.
making a bad allegory here. Okay, this is a bad. I'm doing a bad comparison here. The two completely thematically different stories, but I didn't really connect to the character as much as I wanted to,
Yep.
and so I wasn't. I liked it. I mean, I thought it was really good, but I also didn't go like it wasn't like some of the other reactions I've had where I was like, "Wow, this is the best thing I've read this year." But I did really like it, and I think she's an insanely talented writer, and I'm going to read more of her work moving forward. But she wrote something a little while back that really struck me, man, because I agreed with it completely, and it was it showed up in my feed because someone else shared it. I don't think we
Mm.
follow each other on Twitter, but it did show up my feed last year. Said every review is a gift.
Yep.
If someone takes the time, I don't care who they are. I don't care if it's fucking Joe Blow that reads one book a year. If someone takes the time to read my work and post some thoughts on it and give me a star rating, and they took the time to buy the book in the first place that I put my heart and soul into, you know what? I'm grateful. I mean, you're dead. And all the writers out there, you took a chance on my work. I am no better or worse than well, maybe than anybody else, but except that one guy. Fuck that guy. No,
I know who you're
no.
talking about. Yeah, fuck him.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, fuck that guy. No, I'm just another guy out here trying to do the best I can with the gifts that I have and do the best job I can with what I love to do. And if you took the time to read my work, especially if you liked it enough to give it such a high mark, like that gentleman who recently did, this guy named Dan Bugby, who gave me
Hmm.
this out of nowhere, gave me a 5-star review for Highway 181, which I was blown away. Um, yeah, that's a gift. And I think Haley Piper nailed that. I think she absolutely nailed that. I think she's absolutely right. And she has a good attitude.
Yeah.
Again, I don't want to give the false impression that The Worm and His Kings wasn't a great read. It actually is a very good read, and I recommend it. But I said there was a level on which I thought it would work better for me than it did, and it's just one of those things. But maybe for other people, it might actually connect better.
Yeah.
It's like, how do I put this? He was a better allegory than the Crossroads one. Peter Straub, the guy who
Hmm.
wrote the Ghost Story
Yep.
and the Talisman with Stephen King. I'm not a fan of Peter Straub's work. He seems to be a nice guy. He's got definite talent, but his work doesn't connect with me. It's just there's something about it I find cold and distant.
Yep.
I wouldn't say Haley Piper's work is cold and distant. I wouldn't go that far. I think she has more character, more heart to her story. But on some level, it just didn't.
It just didn't
The
get you.
connection just didn't happen, man. Nothing against her skills as a writer. She's an awesome author, but that particular story didn't hit me the way I thought it would. Uh, there are other stories that she wrote, though, short stories, because that was a novella. There's some short stories she wrote that actually did connect on that level. And I mean, if you're looking for someone who's, especially from a technical level, she's amazing. Seriously, she's like bar none, one of the best writers I've read in the last decade. Her descriptive ability, she puts you right fucking there, man, right there in the middle of it.
Okay.
And I cannot recommend. I do recommend her work. It's worth reading. She's definitely worth reading, man.
Okay.
So there's mine out of left field plug. But I think you have to. That's the best way to. One of the ways you can avoid having an ego is show gratitude for the review. Say, hey man, thank you. Connect with people, because when they're buying your book, they're connecting with you.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good idea, especially when we're at this level. Where, let's face it, we're not exactly best-selling authors. All right, it's good if we can get personal and say, hey man, I connected with that. Thank you for the review. You know, it's nice. It's nice to do that.
Oh, definitely. So the final question, okay?
Okay.
What would be your advice to any young up and comers, anyone who wants to start writing, anyone who wants to pursue our noble art and try to beat us to the punch?
Okay, first of all, don't do better than either one of us. We have enough. No, I'm kidding. Don't listen to me because I failed completely. No, once again, kidding. No, in as much as that I've had any kind of marginal success in this business, I mean, like I said, I'm a cult writer. Truth be told, I've done better than some, worse than others. I seem to have I have regular readers, which I'm very happy about. People seem to like my work. I don't have hundreds of reviews, but the reviews I do have seem to be mostly positive. And
Yep.
I'm surprised at the number of 5-star reviews for Highway 181. They far outweigh the other ones, and I'm glad I've been very well received. Keep at it. Keep at it. Yeah, sure. Write what you know, but also, like we talked about earlier, write what you feel, man. Write what's in your head. If you have an idea for a story, explore that fucking thing. Oh, do us all a favor. Do your research on a subject. Don't write about police investigations if you don't have some idea of how they actually work. Don't write about things you know nothing about, because invariably people that do know something about it are going to read it and go, "Wow, they didn't do any research, did they? This isn't plausible at all." Knowing something, like when I have characters speak Latin, which I have used a few times in my stories for like people speaking spells, which is a cheap fallback, but fuck it, it works.
Yeah.
I actually get the Latin. I go research and find out what that expression would be in Latin. So if you were to pop it into a translator,
It's
the
correct.
translation come up, and it would be like, oh, okay, yeah, I see what he's saying there. I
Yep.
do that because I want some level of accuracy. Do that. Do your homework if you're going to write about something technical. Study the craft. Make sure you understand how English works, because there are people out there that, let's face it, man, there's some excellent writers out there, but there are also some people that don't know how to put a paragraph together, and it shows, and that will kill a story. That will take you out of the story faster than anything else.
Oh,
But
yes.
mostly, don't quit. Don't quit. You're the best advice you can give anybody starting out. You're going to get rejections. You're going to be able to wallpaper your fucking wall with rejections, most of you. Okay? Most people are going to get rejected. It happens to everybody. The best people get rejected. It's part of the process. But here's what you keep in mind. If you're getting a rejection letter, that means you have a story to be rejected in the first place, which means congratulations, you're a writer. You
Yeah.
put something together, you put it out there. Also, don't give up on a story because it got rejected. 99 out of 100 times, or 99% of the time, is what I'm trying to say. I've never submitted a story 100 times. But 99% of the time, seriously,
That's perseverance there.
yeah, that is perseverance. Um, almost everything I have ever tried to have submitted, I've submitted somewhere, has eventually gotten published.
Hmm.
Almost every instance has been a matter of not a good fit for what we're looking for right now, or we have something similar to it already. Every time I get, and I'm not talking form emails, I'm talking about actual responses from the editor going, man, I love this story. I advise you to put it somewhere, submit it somewhere else. We can't use it. I'm sorry to say we can't, but it's good. Keep trying, man, because you know this is good stuff.
Yeah.
Try it somewhere else, and you'll probably find a home with it. I wish you the best of luck. Don't think your writing sucks because it's getting rejected. It's usually a matter of we can't use this particular story. That's the other thing. Make sure you adhere to what the open call is about. They're gonna shoot your story down if it's not about. If they're looking for dark alien stories about dark alien horror, and you give them a slasher story about a killer that wears a tutu, you know, you they're gonna. It has nothing to do with aliens or you know, or anything like that. Then yeah, your story's gonna get rejected because that's not what the open call was about. You know, but you stick to those things, man. Keep persevering. Don't give up because you got rejected. Don't even give up on your story. If you think there's things you could fix, if you're fortunate to get feedback, listen to the feedback. Some of
Yep.
that criticism, that feedback, that critical feedback can be very helpful. I've gotten feedback from people. One of the stories that did really well was in Highway 181 was called Trash Town, and that was one of the earliest stories I sold at full professional rates. I made well
Oh
over
wow.
$100 on a single sale on that one,
Nice.
and it was very well received. And the original version of it was one way, and I got a suggestion from a gentleman named Jonathan Woodrow,
Hmm.
who's another author that I know. He lives in Canada, and John is a good guy. I've known him for several years through Facebook, and I think I talked to him on Twitter too. And he gave me some advice about, hey, there's this subplot you have in there. Why don't you just take that out altogether and focus on this other story and make it about that? And it'll be more straightforward and work. And it did. It was a much better story. It flowed better. It was like, yeah, that works. And that's the version that got sold. And I made a point of letting him know, say, hey, John, man, thanks for the feedback. That really
Yeah.
helped. He had a chance to read it before it got published. And you listen to constructive criticism, and it can be very helpful, especially coming from other authors. And by the way, as long as I'm talking about Jonathan, there's another one. He wrote a book called Wasteland Gods,
Mm.
one of the best novels, most okay. How do I put this? No, I'm serious. Imagine, like, remember the first time we read Jurassic Park?
Hmm.
There'd never been a book about people cloning dinosaurs for an amusement park. That was a brand new idea, right? It was new. Now there's 1,000 different variations on it. But when Crichton did it,
It was.
well, not that idea, but that sensation. Reading Wasteland Gods, I have literally never read another book like it. It was the first completely original, never before done idea I had read in like 20 years. I mean, he created this whole new concept
Okay.
involving traveling through like time and space and the murder of a child. And I mean, it's this amazing book that's full of wonder and terror and drama and great characters and humanity and amazing ideas. And it's scary and dark, also rewarding. And it has this great, humane, wonderful ending that
Okay.
actually gets to your heart. And the year that I read that book, it was my favorite book that year. It was actually, at one point, it was on the preliminary ballot for the Stoker Awards. Didn't make it to the final ballot,
Ah,
unfortunately, but it was one of the best books I have ever read. And if you've never read it, I highly recommend it. I believe it's
I've
still available on Amazon.
I've added
Wasteland
it.
Gods by
Yep.
Jonathan Woodrow. You will love it. I recommend it. Anybody watching this, if you've never read that book, look it up. It is a brilliant piece of work.
I've
I
got it on my list.
absolutely. That's one of those books that sadly I don't know if it'll ever be made into a film because I don't know how they would do it justice. It would have to be like a 4 hour miniseries,
Mm.
maybe on a streaming service instead
Yeah.
of network TV, because there's no way they can encompass the amazing shit that he pulls off in that book in a 2 hour movie. No way, no
Okay.
way, dude. But
Okay.
that's serious. I cannot recommend it enough. And that book came out like 5 or 6 years ago, but it's still Stays With Me is one of the best books I've ever read. It was brilliant. And John is a good friend. He's a great writer. I'm still waiting for the next big novel from him, man. I hope he gets one out.
Okay, I've got a lot of things to catch up on reading now because of you. Thank you. You've added
Yeah.
to the reading pile.
I hope that's true for a bunch of people that get to watch this. That you know they get to watch all this.
Oh yeah.
Like I said, next up on my reading pile is after the ABCs of Terror is your new release, which I will be leaving a review for on Goodreads, an honest review,
Please,
as always.
please.
Uh,
Even if you're reading anything, oh, this is you were talking about the military horror tropes, oh, this is just all those, and it's predictable, and even if it's like criticisms, for me, it'll be constructive. unless
nothing, nothing will be without constructive. No criticism would be without constructive. And I have a rule that I don't leave a review if I can't give at least 3 stars.
Yeah, I
I
remember
don't want
you
to ding an
said that
author.
to me.
I won't do it. I won't give a 1-star or 2-star review because I don't want to ding an author. If I can't give at least 3 stars, in fact, there was a guy who very kindly did leave a very positive review for Highway 181 and asked me if I would read his story. And I got back a couple weeks ago reading. That was before I started the ABCs of Terror. It was the last story book I read. Not going to say the name of it, but I think it was supposed to be kind of a young adult thing, maybe not, but it was apparently, according to the introduction, it was started life as a screenplay that was sort of supposed to be a riff on a B movie, and he was translating it into a novel. He decided to go with the novel.
Okay.
And unfortunately, when I got done, it was one of those situations where the book needed a top to bottom re-edit and rewrite. It didn't work. The characters weren't interesting. The few moments of actual really like good descriptive writing and stuff went too quickly. And the character beats, the drama in it didn't really work. There was within the same paragraph, he would actually change perspective from like the first to third person every other sentence. And yeah, you can imagine how off-putting that is. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm pretty sure the tense of that is wrong. And I felt so bad because he left such a wonderful review for my book. And I finally wrote him back a polite letter. I said, I'm sorry, man. I have a policy. No, if it can't be 3 stars, I can't possibly give this a good review. And I explained what I found wrong. I said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to post a review. I said, the premise is a good one, but this needs a top to bottom rewrite, man. It should not be published. So if you have a publisher, you need to get with them and tell them to re-edit this, man, because it needs work. And I hate saying that because I don't want to sell anybody's heart. I get it. I don't want to break anybody's heart, man. This is a hard thing to put your work into and be told it's not working, man.
But sometimes you have to. Sometimes you've got to do that. And I mean, if knowing your how you write, your style of writing, and how much effort you put into it.
Real quick, let me intercede real quick here. Keep in mind too, that doesn't come just naturally, man. I don't do that shit on the first take. I think the least number of drafts I've done is about 9 drafts per story.
Well, see,
at minimum. I edit shit. That's why it takes me so long between stories. That's why I don't have a new one every week. And for those authors who can do better work than I can, and they're out there, and they can put that shit every couple of weeks, have a new story or 2 out there, God bless them, man. They got a skill level I don't, because I'm anal about that. This is my best work. And if that doesn't work, then I guess my style doesn't work for you because I don't know what else to do with it. But oh my God, yeah. I edit the shit out of my work.
But that's what I was saying, the fact that you do take so long between releasing or stories because you do put in all that effort and that work, that you actually have a really good point of view of being able to say, yeah, look, you can read a story and say, yeah, okay, yeah, this does need that sort of top to bottom, start again. The premise is good. These parts are good, but everything else needs to be changed. You do speak with some authority.
Well, yeah, in as much as I've had people give me feedback and go, I love your writing and everything, right. I've been sold. So do you. I saw, by the way, I guess you just sold another story, right? You have another one coming out. Didn't you just recently announce you have something new aside from this release?
It's already out. It's from Screaming Banshee Press. It's another military horror short story that's in a military horror themed anthology called Contact.
Thank you. That's the one. I'm going to read that too.
Yeah, well, my short story is called Black Ice.
I love
And
that name.
oh,
Which,
I,
by the way, shares the name with the fantastic AC/DC album.
actually, I was listening to it when I was writing it.
Ah, very nice.
Because
Rock on, man. By
because
the way, gotta ask, off subject real quick.
now go
We'll
for it.
get back to your story in just a
That's
second.
okay.
Have you heard Power Up?
Yes, yes,
My favorite album of 2020. We needed that.
yes,
I was the fact that we got them back at all, because I thought they were done after Malcolm died and then Brian's
yep,
hearing. But the fact that we got it back, that they gave us that album, I was like, oh my God, thank
yes.
you, Rock Gods.
And
You have blessed us.
but
You have
here's
said,
the
let there be rock.
here's the funny thing. Hearing all the different when they're releasing the singles and then the album came out. I got the album and everything
Same here.
like any good Australian should.
Oh, right, that's right, yeah.
And I realized that for Valley of because I always make a soundtrack when I'm writing a book or a story, and I realized the Valley of Beacho, the soundtrack is AC/DC, and the theme song is Dirty D's Done Dirt Cheap, and that became that was
now I gotta read it. No, I absolutely gotta read it. Now it's
so I was
now it's a guilt edge priority that I read this story next, man.
because just that's all it was. It was just that their stuff playing as I was writing it, and it just that's why it's a short book. It's about 40,000 words. Okay, it's short, but it moves fast because I was listening to
So
AC.
it's a novella.
Basically, yeah. See, for me, I kind of go, anything over 30,000 words for me, I call that a book for me.
But you know what? It's funny because novellas are actually really good stories.
Yeah, because that's the thing. I mean, I have a problem with like for example, I do have a problem with Stephen King because his books can be 500, 1,000 pages long, and half of that is descriptions of shit I don't care about.
I kind of have some problems with that too, though. I can go on and on. My biggest issue, my issue with my writing, I'm looking back at some of my older stories, is I can get into run-on sentences, big time. Like a sentence that's the length of a paragraph, and I've been down lately. My last few, I kind of tamed it in Highway 181 a little bit. As you get further into the book,
Yeah.
and my more recent work, I definitely have been working on doing better with that. But you look at some of my older shit, and I mean, this is me talking. I'm reading it going, Jesus Christ, what was, my God, could that sentence be any longer, man?
Oh no,
Good God.
I hate reading old things. Like my very first book, The Big Smoke. I picked it up, read the first chapter, and just threw it down, going, how the hell did this get published?
What book was that?
Big Smoke. It was my very first book to come out from Seven Press. Okay. It's a zombie apocalypse story set in Cuba.
There you go.
Yeah. And yeah, I picked it up and I read the first chapter, because I was just, I wonder how it is, because I never read it after writing it and submitting it and everything. And so I picked up, read the first chapter, and went, "How the fuck did that get published?"
Yeah.
I'm glad it got published. I am really fucking glad it got published. It's just that there's that part of me. I cannot read my stuff. If I watch any of my short films from my film school days, I just kind of go, "Oh Jesus, why did you do?" No. I'm the worst person to judge my own work.
Yeah, same here. Listen, I know what my weaknesses were, and I are, like anybody else, I make my mistakes, but my editing's gotten better, and I'm working on that. But yeah, definitely. One thing I do like too, and as much as I like your writing style, one thing I also want to give you credit for is you come up with good titles.
I was going to ask about that because for me, like, for example, right now I am working on a new book. It's actually going to be probably my longest novel yet, and it's called Zombie Nazis on a Train. Extra points if you guess what it's about. And that's the thing for me, titles, I hate titles that are cryptic or have, if I pick up a book, okay, okay, looking at the cover, looking at the title, okay, this has got to do with a monster, I'll read it. Or, certain things come out, I'm like, what the fuck does that title mean?
Right. So like Cabins was a good title. Metalocalypse was a good title. I like the name Big Smoke. That sounds interesting. The Valley of
Beacho, and
Beacho. Thank you.
Well, see, and that's the thing.
I'm pronouncing the word.
It's okay.
Yeah, I like these titles, man.
Well, see, that's the thing. All my titles come. Everything I write all comes to that point of view of, okay, it's writing it. First thing is treat it like a movie. My action scenes I write like they're a movie. Like they're from so for me, my title has to be something that, okay, yeah, if it ever got a chance to be made into a movie, they would keep the title and not change the title.
Right. For
So
me, all of my titles, you may have noticed, they, well, most of them, anyways. Matter of fact, no, I think I can say all of them. Pretty much come from something that happens in the story or a line of the story.
yeah,
Uh, the first rule of showmanship is an actual line. It's something the clown's dad taught him. The first rule of showmanship is never let anything interfere with the performance. Something
yeah,
like that. Uh, there's also like delivery.
hmm
Delivery. The word isn't actually used in the story, but it's an event that happens in the story, so it becomes self-apparent. It brings out the worst in you.
yeah.
Is an actual line from the story later in the further, like near the climax of that story, things like that. So that's where my titles come from.
Okay.
Transient, which is a story of Beyond Where the Sky Ends. um, like the tape from Highway 181 is about the actual thing that the story is about.
Yeah,
Transient was about a transient.
yeah.
The tape was about a videotape.
But
So that's kind of where I write the story first, and a
and
lot of my stories have an original title, and then halfway through I'm like, oh wait, there's my title, and I'll change it.
well, see, that's the thing for me. I kind of I will spend a lot of time coming up with a title first because when I'm writing something, I actually do talk to a lot of people about what I'm
Right?
writing just to bounce ideas off. And I need to have that title so I can say, oh, okay, so in Zombie Nazis on a Train, this is what's happening. Or with when I was talking about the Valley of Becho and things like that, it's a case of I need that title. And 9 times out of 10, it will not change. Um, and for me, titles can come from anywhere. It can either be like, okay, if it's like exactly as a zombie Nazis on a train, that's what's going to happen in the book. It tells you exactly what you're getting. Also,
Right.
it makes me chuckle every time I think of that title. I
Yeah.
go, I have a little laugh, and so does everyone
Hey man,
else when they hear it.
there's a there's a writer out there named Jeff O'Brien who wrote a book called Big Boobenstein, which by all accounts is a really good book. I've never actually read it, but I understand it from what I've read, the response I've seen, it's been well received. I'm assuming that Big Boobenstein is a character that is featured in the story. I'm going to make that assumption, but I love that fucking title.
Yeah, and
Rather than being put off, I heard that title. I saw that title. I'm like, you know what? There's about a 98% probability that at some point I'm picking that book up because
yeah,
I got to know what a big Bubenstein is. You know, well, your book is like that. Zombie Nazis on a train. Okay, I want to find out about these zombie Nazis on a train. I got to hear the
yep.
story behind this.
That's the thing. Same
So
as same as for example, Kaiju World, my Jurassic Park ripoff. That one was exactly that. Okay, I was watching Jurassic Park. I watched all the movies, and I was like, okay, I want to do a kaiju version of this. What would be the name of the theme park? Yeah, Kaiju World. That'll do.
right.
And
Well, I Beloved of Other, which was a fairly epic late story, one of my longest stories, close to like some 8,000, 7 to 8,000 words. Uh, had a very Lovecraftian vibe. And in fact, I openly acknowledged that I was inspired by The Color Out in Space.
yep,
I was ripping on that same basic idea, but doing my own thing with it, doing my own spin on it. And the name comes from a line because it's told from the first person. The guy's narrating the story. It's a journal entry.
hmm
And at the end of the book, and I realized that after saying what I said about Dracula, that kind of makes me a hypocrite, but it's a line. He actually writes and he goes, and I, beloved of other, which is a reference to something in the story that I don't want to give away to anybody that hasn't read it. But when I was done up until that point, I didn't really have a title. And I wrote that and I thought, holy shit,
there's you.
that's my title, man.
Yep.
I, beloved of other. And because it's going to make people go, really? And this is they're reading it on a horror site. So obviously it's a horror story. So it's like, now what about a horror story would make it be called I, Beloved Another? By the time you get to that line, you know exactly
Yeah.
why it's a horror story,
Oh,
So yeah, I think
yeah.
titles are important so far. I've liked yours. So
Oh, thank you. Well, I
good
mean,
job.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I mean, like in this anthology that came out, my story, Black Ice. Literally, I just I was listening to the AC/DC song. And I went, oh, that's a great title. And honestly, from I had these things in my head. That's the title. It has to be military horror. Let's go.
That's fantastic, man. That's fantastic. You might want to title this video "Two Guys Talking" because we kind of interviewed each other here.
Yeah, no, and honestly, I'm fine with that. This was actually really really
No,
fun.
no, that's not a complaint. I love it, man.
Yeah,
This was a really great conversation. I'm seeing by the clock here. It's getting to
yep.
be 5 o'clock, so I'm gonna have to go take care of a few errands.
No, it's okay, man. Look, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for
Oh
talking
no,
and being here. This was
Richard,
a
it was an absolute pleasure. I'm so glad we finally got to talk face to
yes,
face, man. It
definitely
was worth it just to get to actually like talk and hear your
interact.
voice and actually communicate.
Yes,
Thank God for Zoom, man. You know,
look,
and hopefully we can do this again
yeah,
sometime down the road.
definitely. No, look,
As for you,
honestly,
you kind of asked at the beginning, at the top of this, what my plans for the future are, and I think I
yes.
kind of went into that. But basically, what you would think, you saw that I had announced that it's kind of on hold now because some of the stories have been sold. But I do plan another collection, which tentatively is going to be titled "Musings of a Damaged Mind,"
Oh,
uh,
okay.
which which is the name of a short story that I currently have submitted elsewhere right now. But some of the stories that will appear in that collection are currently under contract, so I have to wait for like a year or two
Okay.
before I can go ahead and republish them. So my plan to have that out in 2021 is probably on hold. Until then, I'm just going to keep working in the short form and submitting and probably self-publish some stuff and then
Yep.
just move from there and see what I can do, man. That's basically the game plan.
Well, whatever you put out, I'm going to be there reading it, and I mean,
Likewise, man. I'm looking forward to seeing, like I said, seeing your story, the one I'm reading. See your K story.
yep.
I'm looking forward to reading the new novella and
Thank you.
whatever you have next, and I'll try and look up Big Smoke.
Yeah, that came out 2018, and that one is okay. Basically, this is the my pitch. This is the pitch for Big Smoke. A female James Bond is in Cuba at the beginning of a zombie apocalypse.
And I would like to read that. that's a good idea for a story. I like that.
Yeah, that's the thing. As I said, everything comes from that idea of an elevator pitch for a movie, and then it just explodes.
Off subject.
Yep.
I gotta ask.
Yeah.
Because if you've ever read my stories, it's pretty obvious that I have issues with misogyny, and I'm very much about women being strong, and
Yes.
with very few exceptions, most of my female characters, the ones that I do have, admittedly, I need to write more female characters, but the ones I do have, I try and at least paint them in a sympathetic or strong light. I think one of the best examples was um, the story Passages of a strong female character who kind of takes control of her own destiny. But also, I like to paint a depiction of men who mistreat women or do cruel things to women, kind of getting their comeuppance.
Yep.
Having said that, on that subject, you talked about a female James Bond. What did you think of that kerfuffle about the new James Bond movie when everybody found out that 007 will be a black woman, and they shit themselves because they assumed that James Bond was female, and that's not what they were saying.
No.
I couldn't believe people didn't understand what they were saying. It's been long established that 007 is a code name, not
Yep.
the guy's name. James Bond is James Bond. Someone else can be 007 if he retires.
Yes.
The first thing I thought was, so they gave the 007 designation to a different person, and it happens to be a black woman. And everybody, but what dismayed me about that was the reaction of like a lot of the public. You can't have a female James Bond. Why not? What if James Bond is just a code name? Of course, obviously you wouldn't want to call her James.
Yeah, it'd be
That's
Jamie.
kind of a giveaway.
You call her Jamie Bond, something like
How
that.
about just J Bond?
Yeah.
J period Bond, and you figure it out, But when they were talking about possibly having, was it Idris Elba?
Yep.
As being a possible the first black James Bond, I love the idea.
Yeah.
I thought, man, dude, I can see him being a badass super spy.
Oh yeah, he would be badass, but he's just badass normally.
I think it, man. You ever seen his show Luther?
Yes. Oh.
Oh my God, Luther's something else, man. I got when I still had Netflix, I got hooked on that show. I was like, that's a great series, man.
Oh yes,
But
definitely.
I just thought I see stuff like that, and it's like, man, there's nothing wrong with greater representation, and if it means I have to take a back seat for a while as a cis white heterosexual Christian male, if I have to kind of step back and let someone else who's gay, transgender, black, Latino, female, whoever, who's historically underrepresented, have their time, have their voice, I am fucking fine with that, and everyone else should be,
Yep.
because the more voices we have, the better it is.
Oh,
Going
definitely.
back to Haley Piper, who is openly gay,
Hmm.
as far as I understand. Again, that particular story, The Warmint is Kings, the character didn't resonate with me as deeply as I'd like, but the story was beautifully written. The actual technical aspect of it was written. And I'm so glad her voice is being heard because she's a tremendous writer. I'm glad Lauren Hightower, a female writer, is being recognized, and no one's looking at it going, "What a great female writer." They're just saying, "What a great writer,"
Yep.
and that's what I hope happens with Haley Piper. I hope that's happening with Haley Piper. Yeah, she's gay. So what? I mean, that's great. Represent,
Yeah.
but she's just a great writer, and that's where we need to get. We need to get
Yes.
to a place where everybody, it's not about, I mean, you want them to be able to represent who they are as people. Don't take away their identity. I'm not saying that. Don't diminish their identity. They should be able to vocalize their identity, but let's make it so normal that their identity is so represented that we
Uh,
just think of them as a great writer, not a great type of writer. So they
yep.
have universal appeal. And I want that for everybody. And if that means that as a white guy whose demographic has historically been represented, I have to step to the side and let other people speak, I'm absolutely fine with that, man. I think that's good for everybody, and it's good
Yep.
for our genre. And I
Oh,
hope we see
definitely.
more of that moving forward.
Well, it is happening. You look at the boom of, like V. Castro, all these, Gemma Amor, all these other female writers who are just coming out of the woodwork now. I mean, they've been there. I'm not saying they've never been there before, but they've been
But
there.
then now they're getting a chance
Yeah,
to
that's
shine.
it.
Who is it? Sadie Hartman from
Yes.
Mother Horror.
Mother Horror. Yes.
She had a line. By the way, she wrote one of my favorite short stories in 2020. She actually tried her hand at actually writing a fiction story called. Uh, Let me see if I got the pronunciation of the title correct. It's Matrophagy, I believe is
Okay.
how it's pronounced. And it was this great sci-fi horror story that she wrote, and it was in an anthology called Dead Awake, and it blew me away because apparently this was her first like actual fiction story. And
Okay.
after writing reviews for so many years,
Yep.
and she picked up the tricks of the trade because it was a great story. It felt like the work of a seasoned pro, not someone who was just trying their hand at it. And I was really impressed. And if you
Wow.
ever get the chance, read the
Yeah.
anthology. It's called Dead. I believe it's called Dead Awake,
Okay.
and it's on. It's just a. I did a review for it on Goodreads and on
I'll I'll
Amazon.
I'll,
It's.
I'll check it
I
out.
like it. I don't think it got enough recognition. I think it's a great book. And that was a good story. But she had a great comment that she made on Twitter a while back, where she said the future is female. And based on what I've seen over the last year or two, I'm inclined to agree with her.
Oh,
The ladies of horror are really rocking it. They're writing work that I absolutely love. I'm going to be reading more of it, and I'm glad. Oh, and, and as long as we're going to name drop awesome
yep.
writers, can I express my undying respect and love for the work of the Sisters of Slaughter?
Oh,
Have you
yes.
ever read Mayan Blue? That fucking book, man. Oh my God. Mayan Blue was amazing. And they did this one. It was also in Dead Awake. It's this it's a story they have in Dead Awake, and holy shit, I'm blanking on the title again. Again, not the quality of the
No,
story,
it's just the title.
but it's one of the great descriptive writing experiences, man. It's
Okay.
about these people trying. Oh, the Black Church. It's called the Black Church,
All right. I'll check
and
it out.
it's brilliant. It's a brilliant story. You will be hooked in that story in the first fucking 100 words. It'll
Okay.
draw you right in, and you'll be there. And it's a great horror story. And again, there's another pair of writers that are just knocking it out of the park, man.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I like this. I like the representation we're seeing, and we need to move forward because we're not going anywhere. If we write good stories, people are going to read it.
Yeah.
I saw this put wonderfully a couple of years ago. Equal representation doesn't mean less representation for you. It's not pie. you know, just
It's
because
good.
just because they get more, it doesn't mean you're going to get
Yeah,
less.
because
It
we'll
means that
always
they
have.
finally get what they should have gotten in the
Yeah.
first place. That everybody needs, and that's what I want. I want a point where we're not dividing it by who their demographic is. I want a point where it's so commonplace to have female writers and gay writers and black writers, writers of color and Latino writers from historically underrepresented group. I want that to be such a common thing that you just say, oh, they're a great writer,
Yep.
period. And everybody accepts it because they are a great writer that appeals to a wide demographic. And the best ones appeal to everybody. Like I said, straight, or rather heterosexual white cis male here, and I love some of this these that isn't in the demographic that's writing these stories, and yet I love the work as much as if it were my own demographic,
Yeah.
because they're just amazing writers, and I respect that, and I want to see more of that, and so let's keep doing that. Let's keep doing that. And I hope we get more representation
Oh
moving
yeah.
forward, because it's been
It's
great.
it's happening. It's happening, and there are people whose voices are they are people leading the charge, and it's amazing to see. I mean, I've been part of the horror community, especially with the writing horror community, since
Right.
midway through 2018, and it's only been in the past year and a half, or probably more the past year, where I've gotten more and more involved and more part of it, and just seeing what everyone's coming out with and the representation and the inclusivity that's happening. Yeah, you still get your assholes, you still get your gatekeepers, but as you said, they are few and far between. And just seeing, Sadie Hartman, the Sisters of Slaughter, all of these amazing writers coming out with brilliant stuff. We are in the middle of the golden age of modern horror.
Yeah, the thing about the gatekeeper thing too, I like that you brought that up, because people like you said, Sadie Hartman, Sisters of Slaughter, Lord Hightower, again, Haley Piper, tremendous author. They're taking those gates and they're knocking them wide over.
Yes.
They're wide open. They're knocking the gates down, and the flood is coming, and it's wonderful.
Oh
Because
yeah.
here's the thing: in as much as I write, I'm also a voracious reader. These are entertaining stories. They're well written. This is a boon for all of us, man. If you
Yep.
love reading good, character-driven, well written horror that's really effective and it draws you in, this is the best time ever to be a horror fan. These people are fucking killing it,
Oh
man.
yeah.
Why
Definitely.
anybody would complain? Let me tell you something. Anybody that's complaining about any of these women or any of these other now included voices, anybody that's complaining, they're the problem.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
because this is great. There's never been a better time to be a horror fan. They're rocking it.
Yes,
And I
they
think
are.
on that note, I
Yes.
thank you so much for having me, man.
No,
I
thank you, sir.
appreciated this. I had so much fun. I'm looking forward to posting the link online. Hope I didn't.
It should be probably. I'm thinking this one will probably be Wednesday.
Okay, and whenever you're ready, just I'll look for the link and I'll share
Yep.
it on all my social media, and we'll go from there, man.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, man. And
No, Richard, it was a pleasure. It was a legitimate pleasure, man. Thank you for having me.
anytime, honestly, anytime.
Hope we get a lot of reviews, buddy. I hope that last comment pissed all those gatekeepers off. All those bigots and all those people that are misogynistic and sexist. I hope we piss them off. I hope we get a bunch of dislikes and angry comments going, "Fuck you, man."
Pretty sure
warrior.
pretty sure in the course of our conversation we've pissed off many people.
Oh yeah, I know, right? We're equal opportunity offenders, right?
Yes.
All right, buddy. Thanks a lot, man.
That's all right, man. See you later.
Peace out, buddy.
Post-interview RF Blackstone here again. Thank you so much for watching the interview. If you enjoyed it, please leave a comment, suggestions for other horror authors you would like to see on the show, any questions you would like to have answered by any of the future guests, and click the subscribe, like, all that sort of stuff. And in the description you will find links to DS's work and my own work. See you next time.